Hello and welcome to the One About Podcast, the show where we joke about things that matter to us each week. This week, we dive into the conclusion of the trilogy of films that started a multimedia empire, no pun intended, and see if they end with a bang or a whimper. This is the one about Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. I'm your host, Dean. I also go by EndlessCola in places around the internet, and I am joined this week by our personal Sarlacc pit, Jordan, the Hans.
Yo!
The Han Solo we deserve right now, Matt, and the village Ewok, John. What's going on, guys?
I'm actually honored that you referred to me as Han Solo.
Oh god, when we get to the Ewoks, you're gonna want to edit that out. Swear to God. Watch. Just watch. Just you wait. Just you wait.
I can't wait. What have you guys been up to this week, man?
As of right now, working from home and taking care of 3 kids while trying to play Pokemon? Question mark?
Respect. Trying to build up that Porygon empire.
Oh my god, yes.
Dude, let me tell you a story really quick. So like yesterday, I went to go hose out the trash bin because like after a while, nasty shit gets into the trash bin. You gotta clean it out every now and then.
The whole
And so
world
I'm
is
spraying
aware.
it down. Yeah. So like I'm spraying it down, and I got the hose on the power jet setting on the nozzle and all that. And then after like I don't know 30 seconds or so, it like stopped spraying out. I'm like, oh shit, I got a kink in the hose or something. So I go and try and unkink it, and the hose is fine, and it still won't come out. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I like turn it to a different setting, and then like on the full setting, it works fine. All the other settings work fine. I'm like, what the fuck? I turn it back to jet, and it's like not working. So I try and like twist it. There's dirt in there or something, like try and work it out. And I turn it one more time, and a lizard's leg shoots out of the end of the
Holy
nozzle.
shit.
And I realized that a lizard had made its home in my hose nozzle, and now I've just like shot it into the end of this thing and eviscerated it through the nozzle of this hose.
I mean, was Awesome. it dead prior? It might have crawled in there and died.
It
And
well, it
That's
still had
gross.
lively skin. Like it didn't look like a crusty old lizard that had been
just
Ugh,
deteriorating in
died
there.
the
Like
other
it was
day.
still
Just
nice.
believe that you didn't murder it and you didn't murder it. There.
that is awful.
When half of its skull shot out of the nozzle, yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I'm gonna try and believe that it was already dead because
Yeah.
like I took apart the nozzle to see if I could fish it out of there and save the nozzle. Nah, man. It managed to work its way into a part of the nozzle that doesn't come apart, and now they're just lizard guts jammed into all of the
Oh,
crevices of that nozzle.
that's
I guess
so
next time you'll
gross.
put a piece of tape over it. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, like keep it attached to the hose because that
Yeah.
shit, man, that was horrific.
I found a dead bird in an AC unit condensation line one time.
Dude, like all kinds. So, like, I used to work in HVAC when we lived down in Miami. You see some awful shit when you start pulling apart AC units,
Yeah.
especially like industrial AC units that they have on the roofs of schools and shit, which is what I primarily worked on.
Right.
And like I've seen squirrels, birds, cats that get stuck in there.
Oh yeah, it was
It's
for me it's
not
always been
always.
birds.
Yeah, dude, like there
Had dead
it's
birds and all sorts of shit.
birds. It's funny because like I think to myself sometimes like why do you never see dead birds just laying on the side of the road like you see cats and all kinds of things, right?
They could fly.
But then yeah, I guess, but like you would still think like eventually they would die somewhere where you would just see it.
You
Mhm.
see
But it
dead
turns
I
out that you find dead birds in all kinds of shit like AC units.
on roofs and stuff. We see all sorts of skeletal remains of things because of hawks. And I see a lot of hawks on roofs and I see a hawk like
Oh.
tearing into some shit. I found a baby squirrel on the floor of like on the ground by my work truck and like I fed it some Cheez-Its and then when I went up on the roof, I saw the hawk like must have been picking apart its mother. It's horrible.
Oh god.
Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Like ugh.
Animal Kingdom on the roof.
about you, Jordan? You seem to be enjoying Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, and I get to kill a lot of animals, so it kind of relates.
Good God, man. That-
Well, I go hunting, but I use dynamite, so
The
it's
best hunting tool.
it's been pretty good. I just right before this podcast recording, I just got to the climax of the game. It was pretty awesome. I like it so far. I'm trying to just beat it because I've had it for so long and I'm like 70 hours into it and I just need to beat it already. Like it's one of those games where I'm like, come on, just like I'm skipping side missions and I'm just focusing on like main story quests. So I'm just trying to barrel through it, but I'm like only 60% through.
Are you gonna go back to Final Fantasy 12 after that?
We'll see. I'm gonna get Paper Mario, so probably after Paper Mario, and then maybe if I get Ghost of Tsushima, I'll play that before. But I don't think I'm gonna get that until later on in the year.
Oh, it's so good, dude.
I know it wasn't on my radar, and I know it's fantastic. It looks so gorgeous and beautiful, but I gotta choose my titles wisely. So maybe I'll go back to 12. Um, I know that Mark wants to start up 4 though. I'm more interested in playing 4 with them than I ever was playing 12.
I'm with you on that, but also like I already started 12. I feel like I have to finish it.
I don't feel that way because I have not enjoyed almost any time with it really. I mean,
Wow, really? How many hours have you put into it?
like 12 so far.
Jesus Christ.
I'm well
And-
past the beginning. I know. In Final Fantasy, it's very early game still, right? But
Yeah.
there's just a lot of mechanical things I don't enjoy about it. The opening dialogue and the opening narrative, it's like they just started reading A Tale of Two Cities to you. It's ridiculous the amount of narrative and political drama that you have to get introduced with, and it's almost overwhelming to remember it all. So like these characters appear, I'm like, why do I care about you? Oh, okay. I guess I remember. And then the English voice actors are terrible, but I mean, I switched to
Japanese?
Anyway, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jordan, are you honestly trying to convince me that you actually read Tale of Two Cities, man?
No,
all
no,
did.
I just knew. That's the first thing that came to mind. I tried to,
You
for a
guys
book
didn't
project when I was
require they didn't
younger.
require reading in English 3 for you guys in high school?
That wasn't.
No,
It's
it wasn't
different
on
for
my list
everyone.
either.
I
It wasn't on
remember
my
reading
list.
that book in school.
Yeah, I remember that we read some stuff that other people in my same school didn't read, so I don't know how that works.
I
but-
read 1984 for my own accord in high school, just for fun. It's a great book. I loved it.
Dude, 1984 is an incredible book. That is by far and away the best book that I ever read in school.
Really?
Some classes required Fahrenheit. Oh
Mine
man,
did.
I can't remember the full title of it, but it wasn't required for me. Like the classics though were required. Of Mice and Men,
Yep.
Lord of
Yep.
the Flies, Great
Yep.
Gatsby. I read those.
I didn't do Lord of the Flies.
To Kill a
Dude,
Mockingbird.
one book that always stuck with me was The Giver. Did you guys read that?
Yeah.
I did not.
You know what's funny is like I hear a lot of people who are like, "Oh, we read The Giver in school and it always stuck with me." And
Oh, I
shit
read
like
The
that.
Giver.
I read The Giver. I don't even remember half the plot. Like I don't care
Dude,
about that.
I didn't read The Giver in school. My sister gave it to me and was like, "Read this book, you'll like it," and I did. The Giver was it's like a dystopian society, and the Giver is like the only one who has all the knowledge, and they like just this he becomes the new Giver or some shit, and then I don't remember the rest. I just remember like the first chapter.
They made a
Well, I'm
movie.
sold.
They made a
Yeah.
movie on it. So I'd probably watch that and then read the book. That's what I usually do.
I might
really
buy The
adapt it
Giver on
really.
audiobook with my next
Yeah.
credit and listen to it. After I'm done with
Yeah.
Dune. Dune is the shit. We should just do an entire podcast on Dune.
Dune is awesome. I
We
can't
should
wait for the
do
movie.
one on Dune.
I'm gonna read it and then I'm gonna rewatch the old movie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch the movie until I'm done listening.
I've
to it.
never seen the old movie. I've always wanted to watch it. I
I've
heard
never
it's a
seen it
pain
either.
to get through though.
No, I've watched it
No,
with my dad.
the old
and it was a
movie's
great
not
experience.
that bad, dude.
Yeah,
It's really not. It's
really
it's
good.
pretty good if you don't
Yeah.
have the context of the book.
Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people that I remember didn't, and like I was really
Because,
young at the time.
dude, nobody's read Dune.
Yeah.
That's like, dude, we were talking about it in the Discord the other day. Like, Dune is the biggest sci-fi fantasy that nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Dune is some super low key, super nerdy shit.
And
Yeah,
it's
and
like space Game of Thrones.
It's incredible.
It
It really
It's
is.
is.
It is.
badass. It's badass.
didn't
And then they get into like folding space and like super deep sci-fi topics and shit.
So many tropes came from Dune, man. Like you don't realize like the standards that Dune set and all the like different, like I said, tropes and sci-fi plots and
basically setting
so
sci-fi
many.
standards.
So we
It
just
really
we
did.
just turned this one from the one about episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, into the one about Dune.
No, we definitely didn't. Um so so let me do a little bit of housekeeping before we just jump into it.
hmm
So we now have a Patreon page. So if you like what we do here and you want to help the show to keep going, you can find us over on Patreon as EndlessCola, where you can unlock some nice perks, including getting the show 3 days early. We know your time and money is valuable and we appreciate any support, but if you want to continue listening totally free, we will always be on YouTube at 8 a.m. on Thursday mornings, and we're now available on all major podcast services if you prefer. But with that, let's get right into it. And actually, since we're talking about Dune, I found out a fun fact this week that relates. And so the movie Dune from 1984 is directed by David Lynch, who originally was slated to direct Return of the Jedi, but turned it down so he could direct Dune instead.
Well, that's good, I
D-
guess, because he would have fucked up Return of the Jedi probably.
Dude, Return of the Jedi would have been a weird movie if it was
Yeah.
directed by David Lynch, man. Like, Dune is the only movie of his I've ever seen that I can stomach.
Yeah, I don't
Mm.
really think I've seen any of his stuff.
I'm just gonna put this out there, like, just to kick it off. Like, I kind of feel like this movie is definitively worse than the other two in the original trilogy.
In ways, but I don't know. I mean, I always, as a kid, I liked Return of the Jedi the best because of a green lightsaber. Like, that
Mm.
was it. That did it for me.
I don't know.
Um,
I just feel like everything is a little bit more half-assed in this movie.
I think that
Yeah.
I think that like
Up until you
4
get to
starts
the very end, I
slow.
think the very end was done really nicely, where you have the Emperor being confronted by Luke, you know?
You have that sweet shot of Hayden Christensen.
Oh, you'll get there. 4 starts slow and then ramps up, right? And then
Yeah.
5, I think, is a constant blockbuster throughout the entire movie. And then I think 6 starts fantastic, slumps hard, and then ends great. So
Mm.
I definitely think that 6, going back and watching the original trilogy now, 6 is actually my least favorite one, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Although there were a lot of amazing scenes in in episode 6, I would say my favorite part of 6 is the Emperor. He is incredibly captivating in every shot that he's in. Every word
Absolutely.
you hang
Absolutely.
on, you hang on everything
He
he says.
he's so arrogant and sure that he's gonna win the whole
Yeah.
time.
I
Luke
mean,
even
he
points it
hasn't
out.
lost thus far. Like he straight up orchestrated, like talking about the prequels, orchestrated the downfall of the Jedi by manipulating one dude and the Senate. So like, I would be arrogant after doing something like that. Like I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but even when to reiterate
He
something
didn't
that,
account for
like,
those teddy bears.
when you read a lot of the after the Empire books, like in between episode 7 and episode 6, and you realize that that moment Darth Vader throws him down into the main reactor of the Death Star, that this fucking entire um this entire like things are set in motion, you know, a contingency, this entire huge contingency plan is set into motion at the second his ass dies, and you realize that it's not over. It's kind of cool to know that when you watch it again after all of this, you know.
Dude, Vader waited a hot second before saving Luke from the
Yeah,
Force lightning.
like that scene was just like he was like looking back and forth. He was just like weighing his options, like, I don't know if I like what he's doing. I don't know. Maybe he might stop. No, he ain't stopping, bro. We might have to do something about that. No, let's wait a couple. He might let up. No, he's not
With-
letting up.
With Luke literally, help me, father.
Exactly,
He's like,
screaming.
I don't
tells
know
him,
though.
"Yeah,
And I
mm."
totally forgot. I don't know if this was superimposed after the fact. Maybe it was, but the no, they like, no, and he throws. Was that put in
He is definitely good.
after? What was it? Or was
No,
that
that was always
originally in
there.
there?
That was always
I'm
there.
Yeah, I was gonna
straight-
say I've always remembered that.
Yeah, and I think that was
happening.
bad. Like I didn't like. It was the same sound when in Revenge of the Sith when he finds out Padme dies and he breaks his arm shackles and he's like no, and it's really
Is that
bad.
just where it came from? They took the audio from 6 and they just threw it there.
Is that what
No,
what happened?
it's a little bit different. It's
Okay.
a little bit different.
It's bad.
Shit's
Either
crazy.
way, it's bad.
Yeah, but I mean,
Really bad.
we're literally skipping to the very end of it. Do you want to
Let's
go
just start
kind
at
of
the
in
end
order?
and work backwards.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't care.
I mean, if you want, I mean, that's fine.
There's no rules on this podcast.
mean,
Do whatever we want.
Yeah,
This
the
is the
last-
Wild Wild West.
those last 30 minutes of the movie are absolutely the best.
Yeah.
Every single line that Ian McDermott releases as the Emperor is incredible. Like the writing was beautiful there, his delivery was perfect. I love it. I mean, that's the highlight, is watching that saber fight, seeing Luke really overpower Vader pretty easily too, right? Like it wasn't a challenge for Luke to just take Vader on. I think maybe because he
so
was
much so that he's like, I'm not fighting you anymore. I could kill
Yeah.
you right now. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I mean, but do you think that's because Vader was having like second thoughts around that time?
I think
I
that's
assume
That's when he
so.
started getting doubt.
I assume
Matt, have you
so.
read any
Remember-
substantive material to back this up?
Remember when Luke, he's like, I have endangered the mission, and he tells Leia she's his sister, and then he goes and like surrenders. Well, and he's like, join me, father. I feel the conflict within you. And Vader's very passively like, it's too late for me, son. Like, no, motherfucker.
Yeah.
It ain't too late. If you could consciously make the decision that it's too late, then it's obviously not fucking too late.
It seems like most of the Star Wars theme, well, I would say the first trilogy and the last trilogy, like the theme is about redemption mostly. And I think that's like really held true when it comes to like the big baddies of each one of the series, like except for Palpatine, like that nigga is not changing for nobody. But like I see like I feel like the Jedi side of the Force is like trying to make sure like everything's in balance, and like with balance that means even in the Sith Lords and the dark side, there's good and evil, and like you can find balance within yourself, and like that's why redemption is always possible. Which is I think is a good little lesson that everybody can get from the movies.
It is a very human lesson. I personally don't like the redemptions of either Vader or Kylo. I don't like either of them.
Why you gotta say the K word, man? Ain't nobody talking about that trash.
I'm just you mentioned the original and the sequels.
I think he meant the prequels in the original trilogy, not the sequel garbage.
Nope, I did.
No.
Nope, he knew exactly what I was talking about. That's exactly
Damn
what I
it!
was
Why
talking
you
about.
gotta bring up the sequels, man? This is supposed to be a good, wholesome show.
I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Like in the prequels, redemption is not in there whatsoever. It's just
No.
straight up, I do what I want to get what I want.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. If anything, it's Vader's downfall instead of any kind of redemption.
Basically, but I did notice, I think it was like midway through the movie when like Palpatine was talking to Vader, and he was and Vader said like, I felt his power, and then like the Emperor's like, I haven't felt his power. It's like, that's
Yeah, he said,
weird.
strange, I have not.
Is it
Are you
prob-
sure your feelings don't cloud? Yeah, that was
Exactly. I think that's like when like doubt started seeping into like Vader about like his path that he's chosen is like, was this really the right path? Like seeing how strong Luke has gotten and like what has become of his life, and like he never met any of his kids because of the path that he's chosen, like that kind of stuff, like where it starts seeping into him and like making it like say making him think, oh, the dark side isn't as cracked up as I thought it was.
Dude, speaking of not meeting any of his kids, was anybody else struck when he was like, "You have a sister"? Like, motherfucker, you didn't know about her either?
Yeah,
That last
straight up.
little battle provided a lot of firsts. So you see the first saber throw, the first force lightning, the first what you could like interpret now as like Jedi mind reading or like mind like manipulation that is
Right,
everywhere
like
in the
where
sequels.
Kylo based
Yep.
his powers off of was from that scene.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, for sure, and that's definitely a Sith power. It seems like, I guess, with and also, can it be argued that with the Jedi that using Force, the Jedi mind trick to like get your way, is that not a like a Sith power? I mean, to some degree, it could definitely be
I
used for evil.
It's more persuasion. It's more manipulated persuasion than
Suggestive.
actually like, yeah.
Oh, I'm
which is
a
why it doesn't work on like Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
oh actually speaking of dark side and light side force powers, isn't choking usually is synonymous with dark side? Luke walks into Jabba's palace, immediately chokes them out.
There's so many moments in this movie where I'm just like, are you Jedi or Sith, man? Like,
Love it.
Luke's going around force choking dudes. Obi-Wan Kenobi is upset that Luke won't just murder Vader.
That's
I'm
true.
like, who's the Jedi here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Obi-Wan's
for
like,
sure.
that's my mistake. I should have wiped that out. No, that's your job now, Luke. You're supposed to kill your
But it
daddy.
was the '80s, and the movies in the '80s are about killing. You know.
If Rambo
But
taught us anything.
Yeah. Point made.
actually, Matt, that's a question that I have for you, man. Like, since you're so big on Obi-Wan Kenobi, isn't him being like upset that Luke won't just murder Vader kind of out of character for him?
It's extremely out of character. I mean, it definitely rubbed me the wrong way because I never considered that until this rewatch. When I watched it, I was like, "What the fuck, Obi-Wan?" Like, he's like, "I can't, I can't kill him or whatever." And he's like, "Then you've already lost or some shit." It's like, no, man, no.
Pretty
Obi-Wan,
shocking.
Obi-Wan, even in the Revenge of the Sith, he at least tried to reason with him before they, you know, did the death battle. You know.
But
Yeah.
what don't you think that's a byproduct of him trying to reason with him? Like, yeah, he went into seclusion for so many years, and like he's seen like what Vader's influence did, and destroying the Jedi, and like basically subjugating most of the galaxy. And then his final chance, like, is like, okay, you have your choice of like trying to redeem yourself and trying to make yourself better, or you can kill me right now. And he decides to kill him. So like, I understand why Obi-Wan was just like, nah, I'm done. I did everything I could. Take him out. Like, I understand
So
that.
I know that I was talking shit because you guys started talking about the sequels earlier, but I got to bring this up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this movie is why the sequels are so offensive when it comes to Luke Skywalker. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan Kenobi was the dude who was sitting there like, you gotta murder Vader, dude. Yoda was like, you really gotta go face read
Yeah,
as murder
confront.
Vader.
Yeah.
Luke is the only one who's like, no, man, I'm not gonna murder the most evil entity in the galaxy. And yet you mean to tell me this dude is gonna turn on an innocent Padawan while he's sleeping?
Mark
No.
Hamill doesn't
No.
like the sequels either, and he's very verbal on that.
Yeah, he really didn't like the path that they chose for
You
Luke's
know, and
character
fuck
arc
Ryan
at all.
Johnson. Like, that's all I gotta say.
Oh wow! All right, tell me how you
We're
really
dual
feel.
wielding.
It's not he's not wrong though. Like, it's so ridiculously out of character for Luke Skywalker to do that it just doesn't make any sense.
It
It really
doesn't.
It's
doesn't.
it's counter to everything we've ever
But
known about Luke
Yeah.
but
Skywalker.
I also want to say is, how did Snoke meet Kylo and manipulate him from the shadows? Like, how come they never explained Snoke's and Kylo's relationship, and how come Luke's training this kid, and how does he have like I just like they just there's so much unexplained crap that like even there's so much that they do explain in the books, but there's still so much they don't, and it just makes all of it not even worth it.
They missed a
So
golden opportunity. Like personally, the path I've always wanted them to go. They had a golden opportunity here with Luke because Luke at the end of 6 was really a gray Jedi.
He
He
was.
wasn't a perfect paragon. He wasn't Sith. He was right there in that
But a
sweet
gray
spot.
Jedi
where he
is
had perfect
balanced
balance
because
within himself.
I would actually argue at the end of 6, he is a perfect Jedi.
He's
During
what
6, he's not, but
Yeah.
he follows through the path and discovers what Yoda meant when he said, "After you face Vader, you will then become a Jedi."
Yeah,
He
because
used
I agree
he
with
I
that.
used
would
his
say
anger
that
and aggression. His anger and his aggression are
At
what
first
ultimately
at first he
won.
does, but when he decides he's not gonna fight
He
Vader
throws
anymore,
his
when he
lightsaber
puts
away.
down his weapon, he throws it away. He
Yeah.
understands Yoda's lessons at that point. He's internalized them and truly become a Jedi.
Right. He's
yeah,
transcended.
I feel like he actually found balance within himself. And like what I noticed about the prequels and most of the Jedi's, like I feel like most of the Jedi's were like ridiculously arrogant in their mission and didn't really understand what they were supposed to do. And that's why it just seems like an inevitability that they were going to get taken out.
Mm.
Because I feel like they weren't balanced individuals as like just base facts. Like they just weren't balanced at all. Like they thought that their mission was holy and they didn't see anybody else's side. They didn't really like have any real room for discussion on what they decided. It's like it's either this or like we take you out.
I think
Which I
Palpatine
don't
points that out directly too in the
Yeah.
prequels.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
they're very bullheaded in
Mhm.
their thought process, and that was the problem. And I think Luke embodies what they should have been during those times, to
Yeah.
where like there is redemption for people. Like sometimes fighting isn't the answer. We can find a peaceful resolution and work together instead of just like, okay, this person doesn't match our ideals, so we're just gonna take them out and create a massive force to just overpower them. And like that doesn't seem very Jedi like.
So
It's funny because like when you watch these original 3 movies, who the Jedi are, what they stand for, all these kinds of things are really nebulous concepts. You don't really get a sense of the Jedi. Like Yoda kind of tells you, Obi-Wan kind of tells you, but like based on them, you would think like, don't just murder somebody who gets in your way, like we're assassins, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's not until the prequels established the Jedi Order and all this kind of shit, at least in the movies. Like Matt, I'm sure you could tell me some books where this was established before that happened. But
I don't know if I just think that with the Jedi, I've seen a lot of videos about the Jedi, how their ideologies are flawed, and in a lot of ways they are. I think when
Mm-hmm.
I think about the balance of the Force, I keep coming back to a gray Jedi being like if you think of like what Darth Vader really did by killing off all the Jedi, all he did was bridge the gap, because if there's 2 Sith and there's 10,000 Jedi, then that's not a balanced force in the universe, right? To balance it in that regard, everyone would have to be gray. You have to be able to have emotion and control it. To suppress all of your emotion, you're just gonna have a Anakin like personality to where you're bottling up all this fucking anger, and you're gonna lash out when you find out your wife's cheating on you. You're gonna kill her instead of just divorcing her and just moving on with your life. You know what I mean?
whoa.
Dude,
this
we
this
delved
spun
in
off
some
into a really
dark
dark
territory.
place.
Right.
It was just
Okay.
an example.
so Luke goes into his fight against Vader pretty confident. I would say very confident that
He's
he was
really
going.
confident the whole movie, really.
You're right. He is unwavering the entire movie, which I love. Absolutely love it. Um, the time gap between 5 and 6 is a little nebulous. I looked into it, and it's anywhere between 1 and 3 years. And Luke makes a point to go back to Dagobah, and when he went back to Dagobah to see Yoda and to see Yoda's passing and have that final dialogue with him, learn about his sister, Yoda acts like this is the first time he's come back, right? And then when he talks to Obi-Wan, that was like the first time he had spoken with Obi-Wan as a Force ghost in that time also. So
Yeah.
who trained him? How did he train these past few years between 5 and 6 to become so adept and powerful?
Dude, that was my question too, because like he makes it seem like he's never gone back to Dagobah, and
Yeah.
now he's running around calling himself a Jedi Knight. I'm like, where did you get these Jedi robes? Why are you calling yourself a Jedi Knight? Like, what the hell has happened
I had
between five
always
and six?
assumed he had gone back to Dagobah and done some training, but had to leave. But that's just speculation. But because Jordan, you bring up a lot of really good points when you say it seems like he hasn't been back, and it really does seem like he hasn't. So it's hard to say.
Yeah,
One of
because
those things that you could only just speculate.
he
And
says like, I have a promise to fulfill to an old
Yeah.
friend, implying that he has not been back there like he said he was going to. And then when he gets back there, Yoda's like, "There's no more training you require." I'm like, wait,
What?
what?
You
What
good,
the,
bro?
what do you mean? Like, what the hell has been going on? Like he found a way to build his own lightsaber, which I guess Matt, you were telling us last episode, he goes back to Obi-Wan's little hut and finds it there. But even still, like,
no, he finds the design. He finds, I guess, Obi-Wan's Force
yeah,
Ghost
yeah, yeah.
tells him to go there, and he finds stuff about the Jedi. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about Luke that he finds in the Emperor's possession. I think the Emperor had a lot of those Jedi texts, and Luke goes around apparently after 6, and he goes around and finds all these artifacts that the Emperor had and shit. And even in the Battlefront game story mode, he finds the Sith Wayfinder, I think, which was the first
Mm,
hint at the Wayfinder.
The
no kidding.
most half-assed plot device ever.
We're not
Yeah,
going there, boys.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
But so yeah, it's kind of up in the air how Luke became so powerful. I'm
He
sure
is
that there
powerful though.
is, yeah, I'm sure there's a plethora of comics and expanded books to go over his travels. You know, I'm sure he went to many planets and met with many Force adepts, both creatures and individuals who aren't Jedi but follow a faith around the Force. But there are numerous different religions that follow the Force as a faith. I think you actually see a little bit of this in Rogue One. Um, but then there's also Force adept creatures, which I know Jedi have trained with also. There's actually creatures who are anti-Force that I read in one of the Legacy books. I thought was so cool when I was younger that there was a creature that you couldn't use Force on. Like it was Force repellent. I thought that was pretty awesome. Didn't make any sense what you learned, like once you learn the canonical reason for the Force, but you know it's Legacy, so it's not, you know,
We
it's
we
not
don't
canon.
know the
You mean Legends?
canonical
Are you referring to
reason for the
Legends?
Force.
Isn't midichlorians? Isn't that just a
No,
canonical explanation? Was that not just
Mi-
retained?
no, but the thing with midichlorians is that's just like the cells in your body that channel the Force. It's not the Force. There's no explanation, as far as I know, for
Oh,
what
they
the
moved.
Force actually
So they've
is.
moved the goalpost a little.
Yeah,
So it's
smidge.
like midichlorians are like the like they're like mitochondria in your cell, except they just generate and channel Force.
They're
They
the
give you
powerhouse
the
of the cell,
ability.
all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they give you the ability to channel the Force, I guess. Like, yeah, that's fine. And like, the more
Okay.
midichlorians, the stronger you can channel the Force. Let's go with that.
What I
Yeah.
mean, what's weird is when you start reading about like Plagueis and how he communicates with the Force, it's like they're a living creature. So it's weird, like
Yeah.
that whole dialogue. But it gets really confusing and really gray at that point. So it's not even worth talking about. Just know it. Just understanding the Force is some just feel that you can manipulate is enough. It's just a magical energy. Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually want to delve into the legacy of Darth Plagueis and like read everything about that because I thought that was probably the most interesting thing that the interesting lore that I could come across when talking about
Dude,
like
I
Jedi's and the dark side.
I know Matt will back me up on this. Like, read the Plagueis book. That book is awesome,
Dude,
dude.
it's great. Badass.
Yeah.
It's kind of more about Palpatine than it is about Plagueis, but it's still really
It
great.
it
mean,
is.
yeah,
It's called
you're
Dark
gonna get that.
Disciple, but it's about his training. It's really cool about Plagueis because you get to see his background, where he's from. He's from Naboo, and I mean you know that, but you get to see a little bit about his upbringing. He kind of hates his family, or he comes from wealth. He's a very rich mofo, but he's like his parents expect something of him, and he's like just wants to be the evil piece of shit.
One
Yeah.
thing, one thing that surprised me was that Darth Plagueis' death happens during the first film. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's during the first film, like its timeline when they're on Coruscant. That's when the actual assassination happens. That's when Palpatine kills him.
I couldn't confirm or deny that
I
for
think
you.
I remember
I have
I
reading.
no
don't know.
idea
I
about
can't
that.
You
confirm
mean
either.
episode 1?
Yeah, episode 1, because in the comics, Darth Plagueis actually meets the boy. He meets Anakin as a child. He goes to their apartment that they're staying or whatever. He like tricks whomever's guarding him, and he actually meets the boy Anakin, and he determines that he's not going to be a threat, or I forgot the exact reasoning that he didn't actually kill him, but he just essentially walked away, because the whole point is Darth Plagueis' entire life was devoted to mastering life and death through the Force. So he wanted eternal life, and he wanted to be able to control life and death by using the Force. And he thought because he came close to achieving this, the dialogue was that the Force was mocking him, so they created a being of pure Force, essentially, which is what Anakin was. He thought that that was the Force's way of mocking his efforts to control life and death through them. And that same night that he met Anakin, Plagueis got him really drunk. This is the story. Got him really, really drunk, had a dialogue with him, and then actually killed him in their apartment that they were staying on Coruscant.
Wait, killed Anakin?
No, killed no.
Plagueis got
He killed
killed by
Plagueis.
Sidious.
Yes, Sidious. Sorry,
I know
mixed that
I
up.
know
Yeah.
Plagueis in the beginning of Dark Disciple. It shows Plagueis. It talks about the very first chapter. I think is Plagueis killing his master.
That's usually
Yeah.
the succession, right? That's the expected Sith
Yeah, with
succession.
Sith, yeah. There's only supposed to be like 2 Sith, and like there's like two main rules. Like it's like rule of one and like rule of many when it comes to
It's a rule
Sith.
of two.
Rule of
Rule
2.
of 2.
Anyways, but that's why Sidious he'll half train people. Like Darth Maul was a Sith assassin. He wasn't like a true apprentice like Vader was. And Dooku was also being used, and Dooku had that apprentice, what's her face. And even if you want to count when in the Force Unleashed, I know it's not canon, but that was like a half-ass apprentice of Darth Vader's, So the rule of two is like a gray rule, like, you know.
It's just making sure that you teach them enough that they're useful, but to where they can't usurp your
Well,
power.
the rule
I
of
get
two is once you become powerful enough to kill me, you should. You, you know what I mean? Like once the student becomes the master, it is accepted that the student should kill the master.
it. Excellent.
If they can, but the master will kill the master will kill the student if they're not strong enough. So like if Darth Vader wanted to kill the Emperor, he couldn't do it because the Emperor would have walloped Darth Vader in his state. He with any amount of electricity would have killed him. Um, that's why he's like, together, son, we can kill the Emperor and rule the galaxy. Like, because Darth Vader was really no match for the Emperor, you know. But he has that drive to kill the Emperor because the rule of two. The apprentice wants to kill their master, and they crave the power. They crave because all Sith are driven with selfishness and jealousy. You know, they crave that. They want to be the top dog. They want to be the master after a
Yeah,
certain
and
amount
in
of
a lot of
training.
the canon comics and books, it shows Vader like actively plotting to kill
Yeah, exactly.
Sidious over and
Exactly.
Yep.
over again.
Exactly.
Also, I looked it up, and you're right, Jordan. The story you're talking about, Plagueis does die during the events of Episode 1, but that's a Legends story, so it's not canon
Oh, it's Legends
anymore.
now. Okay.
Yeah,
Still, it's cool.
I find it hard to keep up.
I can't blame you. it's hard to keep up with freaking anything with Star Wars. They're always
they
making things legends and
they
not
just shit the
canon, and now
bed.
it is canon.
They shit the bed so hard on a lot of ways. A lot of those legends, like even technically that book Dark Disciple is legend.
But I mean, like, to be fair, at some point they had to be like, all right, we got to start again because this is getting out of hand.
But like Jordan also said, and we're gonna quote Jordan a lot, is they missed a golden opportunity with those movies, man.
That is my stance. Like with the sequel trilogy, like they had so much to work with and so much potential, and they just dropped the ball every place that they could.
Yeah, pretty much.
Seriously.
Speaking of dropping balls, uh,
Nice.
dude, like Luke at the very beginning of this movie, Luke rolls up into Jabba's palace like he owns that bitch.
Oh
Like,
my
Love it.
God.
how did he go from this like little moisture farmer to now he's just kicking in the front door of Jabba's palace, murdering guards and demanding shit from Jabba?
Yep.
It
No,
was kind of
he
weird
gave Jabba
how.
every opportunity to survive that. Jabba's
Yeah.
just an idiot and a very arrogant prick because
I
he was
mean,
like,
again,
listen,
I mean,
even up until
yeah.
the end, he was like, listen, before you execute us, I'll give you one last chance. Free us or die. You know?
And
I mean, in his defense, he's seen a lot of Jedi get fucked up by less than a Rancor in a small little pit like that.
Yep.
I think the odds were pretty good that Luke wasn't going to get out of there.
Yeah, and then the Rancor pit scene with Luke, I feel like this is another stance of just ineptitude on whoever designed the Rancor pit, because it's like, why is the button down there with them? Like, I don't understand. Like, he threw a rock, hit the button, crushed the Rancor, and wins.
Why
Like,
didn't he just use the Force to push the button?
I mean,
Now,
yeah,
now you're asking those real questions.
yeah,
it took me
but
a
like
while to warm
still,
up.
my point is the button shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Well, he
Well,
could have
the way
forced.
that I read that scene was that the button is outside of the pit.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's like a
super
separate.
clear on how he
They
got outside the pit like that, but it was outside.
no,
you
he
gotta
just
think
went
about it.
through
They gotta
the.
change that thing's water and shit, and like clean his poop. So that's just
Bro,
the easy
bro,
entry.
that Beastmaster was so upset that
No,
his
that's his
Rancor
pet.
got killed.
That did you know that guy raised that thing? That guy raised that thing from like a baby.
He's like the only human in Jabba's palace, and he is so upset about his baby Rancor that just got wrecked.
Dude, he was like in love
Oh,
with that
boy.
thing. Like not in love like sexually, but he was like that was like his child, you know?
Yeah, I
Oh,
totally understand.
what? Speaking of the whole canteen, of the whole Jabba story arc in the beginning, what was the plan originally? Like, I understand the two droids going there. I understand R2 having Luke's lightsaber the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What was the purpose of Leia going there at all? Like,
Yeah, I
she
actually
just got
forgot
herself.
that until I
She
rewatched
freed
it.
Han.
She just got.
freed Han.
She freed
Because
Han, yeah.
But Luke could have easily have done that, and
And gotten
Leia's
out,
intention at
honestly.
that point, was, okay, I'm gonna free Han, and then we're gonna leave. So if their plan succeeded, then Luke would have had to go back and go, okay, well I got Han out, but I need those droids, so I'm gonna go ahead and break in and take the droids back too. Our plan actually succeeded.
If I can quote Dune for a second, they had plans within plans.
They had
Jesus
contingency.
Christ.
he might have
It's
had
like
a Force vision or something, man, and like I don't know.
he just he saw 14 million paths, and he took the one where Leia ended up as a slave in that outfit.
We're
Well,
just
it
skipping
brought
all
No,
over the
it,
place,
I mean
aren't we?
the way that I read that scene is like Leia's job was to get Han out of the Carbonite.
right.
If they got away after that, great. But
Mhm.
if they don't, Luke is still going to come in there. R2 has got his lightsaber and he's going to kill Jabba and break free.
I think Luke coming there was maybe he sensed that things weren't going to plan, so he's like, I gotta bail these fuckers out, like Plan B, you know?
But like my whole thing is like, okay, so they get Han out of the Carbonite. Why didn't they just put him back in?
Because they don't have that chamber
Oh,
thing.
good point. Yeah, they don't.
They
You
don't
got to
have
go
what?
all the way to Bespin to do that, and Jabba's not traveling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
That makes
Jabba
sense.
Jabba doesn't just have a carbonite chamber laying around.
Well, no,
With
but
with how
remember what
much
we
money
talked
he got
about on the
swaying
last one,
around, he
Dean?
should.
Where we were like, hey, we don't even know if this is safe for life forms because it's not used for that. Well, now how do they know how to get them out? You know,
Bro, that was one of my notes. I was like, all of a sudden, Leia's an expert on
an
carbonite. She
expert.
knows exactly how to get him out.
But
She knows the
if it was
hibernation
three,
sickness.
Sickness, how
yeah,
long he's gonna till he
Hey, they had
regains
3
his sight.
They
They
had
had 3
up to
years.
3 years. They had up to 3 years between the 5th and 6th to plan this. So Han was
What did they do? Go back to Bespin and free somebody in carbonite
Free
just to
some
see
animals.
what happens when they come
They
out?
could have froze. They
Conduct
could have froze like an
experiments.
animal and tested it that way. And what if he had died? What if he died in the unfreezing process? They kill him. You know, they do it too quick or something.
It'd be a very different movie. it would just be different.
And the
Oh.
sequels would be instantly better. Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Let's,
Kylo disappears. You just see Kylo just slowly disappearing in the sequel.
Like Back to the Future.
Yeah, like Back to the
image
Future.
of it just starts fading away.
Yeah, he's looking at his hand. He's like, "Oh no, what's happening?"
No.
Ooh,
Let's go to the enchantment under the sea dance, Mom.
something that would have been just as jarring and was very jarring was the added song that they put in the CG.
Oh yes,
in the song, in Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
That the entire atmosphere of Jabba's palace was dark, it was dank, it was mysterious, and it was threatening. And then all of a sudden, they break out into that, and I'm completely de-immersed.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, first of all, like, this is one of those scenes where, like, I remember this from my childhood. It's been in the movie for so long that
I did not remember.
I mean,
thought it was newly
this is
added.
like a you know, like
It was
I mean,
added in the late
Jabba's a
90s.
gangster. He's gonna want entertainment, and like just because your idea of
Yeah.
entertainment doesn't line up with Jabba's, man, I mean, he's a freaking glutton alcoholic. You know, he wants to party. You know.
But I will say you get that sense when old girl who was dancing as a slave, he just throws her in the pit. I think that was more of a scene to introduce like the threat of the Rancor, and like he's just got this big beast just under his throne room waiting to kill people, and like he just throw people in there on a whim. Because
Yeah,
I don't remember her doing anything really wrong. Yeah. Just for
Matt.
entertainment. So you
Matt,
still
is
get that.
Bib Fortuna a Twilek?
Wait, say again.
Is Bib Fortuna a Twilek?
Who's Bib?
His major domo, the guy with the tentacles coming off his head.
Yeah. Him and the
he's
slave girl were both
he's
Twi'leks.
He is, but
But
he's just
aren't
like an
they green?
albino.
No.
Is he albino? Oh, okay.
He's got red
They
eyes.
They have different colors of Twi'leks. They have blue, green. They have white. I think he was
Normal human flesh
special.
colored.
Well, he's got red eyes. He's definitely albino. I don't know if he's Twilight for sure. That's not in my expertise. Sorry.
Let's find out.
Google it.
What's funny is
he might be something else, man, because he only has one tentacle. He doesn't have two.
Two, yeah.
No, he does have two. They're just wrapped in a weird way.
Oh, so he
I
probably
I
is.
thought he
He's
only
also-
had one at first
He
too.
also has
he
sharp
does.
teeth.
Yeah, that was weird to me.
I think that was the
Cosmetic?
first time that alien species was introduced, or were they in the cantina scene in 4? I can't remember.
They
if there
were
was
in
a
that
Twi'lek
Bruce
there.
Willis movie.
What?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Fifth Element?
They were in Fifth Element.
Yeah, ish.
Are
It's
they
like
really?
it's like one of, I don't know which movie came out first, but somebody stole some shit from somebody else.
A question that I wanted to ask you guys: how do you think the story and the movie would have changed if they had left Han Solo like dead in the carpet?
Almost none at all.
Like how
So-
if
Like what does Han Solo do that's extremely Actually, before we get to that, I just did we really have to kill the black girl first in this movie?
I know.
Like
80s.
did that stand out to nobody else?
The
Like
80s
is that
invented-
really what we're going with this?
The 80s invented that. trope of
Yeah,
killing
it's
off a
a
black
trope.
character.
It's a yeah. When like, no offense, like culturally wise, like if you actually got involved or like hung around actual black people in a tense situation, they run. They don't question what's going on. They don't try to figure it out. They run. Like 100%. If I was in that situation or in like a tense situation that I didn't feel I had any chance of surviving or like a good chance, I'd be out there.
You
Like
don't hedge your bets.
straight
So
up.
you trying to say
That's
white
why
people
it was
run towards danger?
100% they do. Oh, there's a creaky noise
I'd
in
stick
the
around.
shower. Let's go check it out. Let's see what's happening. Maybe I can fix it.
I carry a 9mm most places, and I think I'm still running if I don't stand a chance.
No, that's the thing is like they go and check it out when they don't have any sort of protection.
Right,
Where it was like,
that's the
oh
sketchy
man,
part.
everybody's been disappearing. Let's go into this sketchy corridor and see if we can find out what's going on. No,
I'll
I'm like,
figure this
no,
out.
I'm going to the car. If it doesn't have the keys in it, I'm hot wiring it. If it's not hot wired, I'm gonna find a bicycle somewhere and just ride off. Like,
Are you insinuating that there's some sort of predisposition to danger?
Yes, 100%.
And and it's not a fearlessness.
100%.
Like the fear's gotta be there. Like you gotta be afraid while
No,
you're doing it.
No, it's like I think it's like they don't think they're actually gonna get hurt or in danger, which makes sense. That they just like go into any situation, just be like, nah, it'll be fine. Like if something bad's happening, like it's not gonna happen to me. Like everything's gonna be all right. I feel like that's kind of like the underlying cause why they do it, but I never understood why. Like it always seemed like black people would die in horror movies first because it never made sense to me.
Yeah, because in real life they would have been out
They would have been out.
with quickness.
I don't care if they're like strapped with like whatever sort of weapon or utensils. If like I don't understand it and like I don't feel I can take it out, I'm done. Like there's no point in me putting myself in that danger.
I think that my curiosity
respect
would
that.
definitely kill me.
I
would be the one that would die.
Take over.
Yeah, like if some weird alien shit was going on, I couldn't resist it. I would have to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta check this
It's
out.
like if like your mindset is like if I lived through this experience, the stories I could tell.
That's 100% what I'd be thinking, John. Dude, that's exactly what I would that would be on my
Jordan,
tombstone.
Like you're
That would
thinking
be
Jordan's
on
like,
my-
what? Jordan's like, what happens if I play one more mission in Red Dead 2?
Yeah. Oh, this next mission
Jordan's
sounds
epitaph,
exciting.
worth it.
Yeah.
But like that's what I mean. Like so getting back to episode 6 is like to Dean's point, I was like, did Han really like add anything to the story? Or like I'm 100% sure like the reason they brought him back is because he was a fan favorite. And people like didn't like the fact they got stuck in Carbonite because the original plot and what Harrison Ford wanted was for Han Solo to be done in the second
Right.
movie.
Like he played in episode 7 to get killed off on purpose.
Yep.
Well,
Because that's what he wanted originally.
well, apparently in episode 6, he's a general now, so you can't just.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, hey, Harrison, we're just gonna downgrade you to a general. Did I say downgrade? I meant upgrade.
Dude,
So
Lando's a
stupid.
general now.
Like after
Han
he
is a
betrayed
general.
everybody. Like
Fuck,
yeah,
Luke's a
like,
Jedi. You know?
There was
Luke
like
is a
straight up-
Jedi Knight.
I'm trying to think
there
of-
was a quip between Lando and Han, like basically talking about like, oh yeah, you're the most trustworthy person here, so no wonder you're leading the mission. Like that kind of
Sketchy.
stuff.
Bro!
It's like
Bro, was nobody else like Lando's the trustworthy one?
yeah,
What
exactly.
Did nobody watch the Lando movie, man?
Yeah.
Oh man, exactly. I was like,
Obviously,
all
they
right.
didn't in the 80s, but
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like if Lando's the trustworthy one, I have some serious issues with this rebellion's chances.
Yeah.
Like whoever's in charge
Yeah.
of HR for the rebellion is dropping the ball hard.
The
Oh,
assumption
dude.
is they have one.
Mhm.
They
I don't know why this just came to mind, but like, was anybody else like laughing their ass off at how gung ho C-3PO was to just straight bail on this whole plan?
Oh, he's
Like,
been
he's
like
always
that
like
since
that.
the beginning,
That's a-
but like I love
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
about
but like
him.
every chance he had, he was just like, "Looks like they're not going to answer. Look like they're not going to let us
Yep.
in. Looks like like he just wants to get the
So
fuck
good.
out of there,
because
dude."
Like he's the
how
most
does a
logical
robot have
one
fear?
out there.
You know,
Yeah,
why
dude.
is fear programmed into him? Like
Why was the
Why-
Sith
self-preservation? Is it for
language
why is-
programmed into
self-preservation?
him?
Why is not impersonating a deity programmed into him?
Yeah.
I will
It
say,
goes against
all
my
right.
programming.
So touching upon that, like first off, about the programming of the robots, let's touch on the scene of the torture chamber for the robots. And I was like,
Yeah,
that didn't make
Were they-
sense to me.
I
Like
I couldn't understand. Were they branding it or were they torturing it? Because it
They
was
were torturing
screaming.
it was
and
it
which
was the
doesn't
They were
same
make
thing
sense.
torturing
over and over. They were torturing it over and over again. I was like, what is this supposed to instill fear into C-3PO? Is this supposed, like, I understand them, like the robot that was chained together and they were ripping it apart. I would fear that even if I didn't have pain receptors like programmed into me. But like homeboy just upside down getting his treads burned, and I'm like, what is that supposed to do?
I think they just wanted to add to the shittiness of Jabba's palace. Like they just got a major
Yeah.
downgrade in quality of life.
Like
know,
if it was actual like alien species, I could understand. But robots? Like it was robots torturing robots. I'm like, no, I'm not feeling it. I don't see see where the danger is.
It was weird, and then R2 got the utmost disrespect, just being a drink server.
Yeah.
Just carrying around drinks for everyone on Jabba's ship.
But
Yeah.
R2 is like he's like a stalwart. Like he's the rock of the group. Like he's down to do whatever.
He's
to
ride or
make
die,
sure-
yeah.
Yeah, to make sure the mission goes through. Like he will do whatever he
definitely
can and put himself in danger.
without R2D2, it doesn't feel like Star Wars, right? Like watching
Without
BB-8 roll
R2D2
around was wrong.
Yeah, without R2D2, like straight up, like they all would have died in the first movie.
Yeah.
It would have
Like
been
there
hard.
wouldn't be a Star Wars without R2D2. Like R2D2 MVP Star Wars.
You're right. He held that
Yes.
message.
Absolutely.
No contest whatsoever.
They would have.
Like
They would have all died in this movie without him. Too.
Only R2D2 can launch a lightsaber from his chest.
Yeah, nobody else.
He
Nobody
has.
else.
He's a Swiss Army droid. He had a saw to cut through the ropes. He has
He had a
he has,
flamethrower back in the
He's got
day.
a taser.
What happened to his flamethrower?
honestly, I don't even know why they keep C-3PO around, or why they didn't change his programming to where he was more like R2D2, like all for the mission. That's what I never got, but I get it to give like more personality, and also C-3PO is like the person who's like showing the audience like how crazy this all seems, and like they're never gonna get out of it, like giving you a sense of like dread and danger.
I always kind of felt like you can't program the personality of the droids. Like you can tell them how to be, but like their actual personality is literal artificial intelligence.
Well, and is it a learned behavior from experience? Like with these droids, is
no,
it so
because
advanced?
C-3PO's always like that.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you supposed to
Yeah.
also wipe their memory after a certain amount of time? That's what happened to Lando's droid that had to get like assimilated into the Falcon. Like that's canon now, right?
Yeah, I want to say like I remember them wiping the memory of a droid, and then after they came back, they were basically the same. They just didn't remember anything.
So wait a minute. When they
It's-
did that, when they was that Gwendolyn Christie that got assimilated into the Millennium Falcon?
The actress that voiced her, I don't know.
Pretty sure
no
the
idea.
one who played fucking the Game of Thrones lady. She was also Captain.
Oh
Phasma?
yeah,
Was
I
that
think
her?
it was her. Yeah, I think you're right.
So if they did that, then how come now you got to watch the movies? Now there's no, because she had like the best knowledge of the hyperspace travel, right?
Yes, she was the co-pilot for Lando.
Yeah, but then when she becomes part of the ship, she doesn't talk or anything anymore. She's just part of the ship.
Are you trying to say that Lando is low key a bad movie?
Yes.
Solo? No, I think Solo's still a good movie.
So it's
I do this.
it's too
I do
much of
think
a
it's
slow burn for me to enjoy, especially for a character that's like so charismatic. I didn't favor it much.
definitely
seemed
not the
like-
best, but
It
Not the
seems like
worst
any
either.
movie that Daenerys is a part of that's not Game of Thrones related automatically bombs for some reason. It's just off. And I don't know if that's for her like acting talents or whatever, but
I
I,
don't
I
think
don't know.
personally. I don't think that she's an incredible actress. I think she's good.
Hmm.
Like people really blew the lead in the Hunger Games up. I forgot her name. Jennifer Lawrence.
Yep.
Like people really blew her up. Like, oh my god, she's incredible. And I've seen movies with her outside of those, and I'm just like, it's
She seems kind of
average.
one note. She seems kind of one note, right?
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
think a lot of that has to do with like the roles that actors and actresses choose, though, because like in Jennifer Lawrence's case, Mother is an incredible movie. She
Yes.
does a great job in that movie.
Some people only know how to play one thing. Like Tom Cruise can only play Tom Cruise. But on that note, I gotta go. So you guys can continue this one without me.
Um,
Mm.
if I can complain real quick about C3PO because we were talking about it, and I just brought up something I thought about when I was watching the movie. So he's an interpreter droid, right? He knows 6 million languages. He
Hmm.
stumbles every single time he has to give an interpretation. He's always like, "Oh, it's an old dialect," or "Oh, he kind of said this." Like, there's always some kind of excuse. So I think he's
Hmm.
a terrible interpreter droid.
Just in general,
Uh,
C3PO. C3PO, in my opinion, doesn't have much use. He has more use in the sequel trilogy than in any other trilogy, in my opinion. And like in the first and second trilogy, I think he's just there for comic relief and a foil for R2D2 and to like translate what R2D2 is saying or his motivations by his actions. I
It's a
think
lot of
that's
comic
his main
relief.
role. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he always does the job, though. Like maybe it's not perfect or something, but he always gets it done.
Yeah, but he all it's more the fact that he's never really like has any drive to actually help.
That I mean, that's true. C3PO exists for C3PO.
Yeah, and like that doesn't make sense, especially for a droid who's supposed to be in service. Like the fact that he calls like Anakin his master, but he's not willing to sacrifice anything or himself to help him out. It seems like it's just what's the word I'm looking for? It's contrary to what his primary function should be. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's also kind of weird that like R2D2 and C3PO don't recognize anybody.
Yes. I mean, did they ever see Anakin when he turned into Darth Vader or like see any of that? Was that proven?
Uh, n- I don't think so, but they would
No,
know
not
who
really.
Obi-Wan Kenobi is.
True, and then you would think Obi-Wan Kenobi would give him like the rundown of information or like he'd be just racking his brain over what just happened the first few years after Anakin turns to Darth Vader and starts destroying shit around the galaxy.
My head canon is that their memories of Obi-Wan were wiped to protect him. That's
That
my
would make sense.
that's
Well,
Right?
my
if
head
that's
canon, you
if
know.
that's the case, then it further cements the fact of what I was saying before that the droids just are who they are. They're like people. They have a personality. Even if you wipe their memory, they're still who they are.
Yeah, but you would think that since it's like a something that's based on programming, if you wanted to, you could change that personality pretty easily if you would think about it, right?
Maybe.
Prob
I
mm,
don't know.
it really depends, man. Like if what I'm saying is accurate and like they have artificial intelligence that creates their personality, the only way you're going to fix that is if you completely wipe them and do it all again from scratch.
Like basically take out the droid soul. I got you. Yeah, yeah,
And
Yeah,
that
because
at that point you're talking about murder.
yeah.
oh, that's a real gray area, right? Like
For droids, yeah.
I don't
droid
really think so,
rights.
man. I don't really think so, man. Like if you're talking about a creature that has its own personality, identity, thoughts, and feelings, and you take its life away, like that's just
That's
murder, man.
that's murder or just outright just mind control, like
Like
mind wiping.
we give more appreciation to animals that have less than that.
Yeah.
True. I guess the only difference is that we just don't use animals. Oh, I can't even say we don't use them as tools because we, in a way, kind of do in certain specific scenarios. But yeah, That's something
I don't,
that generations after we're dead are going to have to probably worry about. I don't think we're going to worry about that during our time here.
I don't know, man. The
But
way things are going, we might have to.
maybe if it progresses enough, but changing changing an AI's personality would probably be very complex. But you could program in certain fail safes. Like that was the whole point of Will Smith's movie, right? I Am Robot.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
laws, the robotic laws.
Yeah.
So circling back around, did anybody else catch how Jabba refer or no, maybe it's not Jabba, is it C3PO? Oh no, it's C3PO interpreting for Jabba. But he calls it the all-powerful Sarlacc pit.
Oh my god.
This thing is like a big worm in a hole. What makes it
Wait,
all powerful?
yeah. Okay, my question is, did they add the beak later on? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't
Yes.
remember that.
Yep.
Okay.
No, yeah, it
All
used to
right.
just be a pit.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you
Which
know what's funny about that is if you watch that scene closely, there are scenes where the beak is there and then scenes where it's not.
yeah, and like I will say the original Sarlacc pit where you just see a pit with tentacles and just like a gaping maw with teeth going down was way more imposing and terrifying than like a big like air shot pan and then you see this beak coming out of the sand. I was like, what?
Yeah, I didn't care for the beak. I don't care for most of the enhancements that were made in the late 90s,
Please
but
tell me you put up air quotes. Please tell me you did.
um I'm happy though that they did keep the like they had a few options to enhance a number of scenes, and they took those options with whenever a claymation was used in stop motion. I was
Hmm.
happy to see that the Rancor is true to its original form.
Yeah, that
Like
was awesome.
the Rancor scene is entirely original, stop motion, figurine, looks fantastic. Um, so I was happy to see that they didn't touch that. I couldn't remember if they had touched it or not because it had been a while since I've seen 6, so I was worried when I was going up to the Rancor scene. I'm like, oh god, like they're gonna
What am I about to
they're
witness?
gonna put like bigger teeth on it or something. I just couldn't remember what they had done, but thankfully they didn't do anything at all. Will be digested for 1,000 years.
Yeah, dude, like when he was like, "You'll be digested slowly over 1,000 years," I'm like, "You're gonna die of like thirst and starvation well before 1,000 years is
Oh,
up."
absolutely.
Unless the Sarlacc is down there, like, "Here you go, sir. Here's a nice little bottle of wine with your acid bath."
Just keep it. I mean, there are like certain entities that I saw in like anime series and like other sci-fi series that they keep their food alive through certain means like chemicals or whatever, like they give them nourishment while they feast on them for longer. But like, yeah, the Sarlacc, I don't know why they're talking about 1,000 years. You're correct. Like they're just straight up gonna die way before they hit that mark.
I think they're just being intimidating. But yeah, it's not like this is the only Sarlacc. There are many Sarlaccs, so it's not like an all powerful being.
Are there many Sarlaccs?
Yeah, I
Like, how
mean
many
it's not a
Sarlaccs are there?
unique creature. I've never known it or never heard it just any explanation of a Sarlacc being used or description naming it as the only one. It's just a species that lives on I would assume only
Yeah, and
Tatooine.
yeah, that's not a far fetched ideal that it's like there's
Maybe
more than
it's
one
like the
Sarlacc.
biggest Sarlacc. Like maybe like it's the largest one there. Maybe other Sarlaccs are smaller. You would assume younger ones are smaller. Maybe they die out for whatever reason, but this one has just gotten so damn big.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's an awesome creature though. It's a cool concept.
It
It's a,
definitely is.
it's kind of a cool concept, but also kind of a stupid one when you think about it. Like, how would a creature like this procreate?
I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
you think it's more of like a spore type thing, maybe?
Maybe?
I
how would
would
it
think that.
procreate? I have I got nothing for you. I have no.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. How about this? All right, how about this?
Oh,
Maybe
I actually do have an answer for you. Sarlaccs began their lives as spores and were able to travel great distances.
You're
When a
welcome.
male
Thank
and
you.
when a male and female encountered one another, the smaller male would parasitically feed off the female, diminishing her size while increasing his own. Once the male has reached the female's original size, he would burst, releasing millions of spores into the air and atmosphere. But
cool.
hold on. When a
John
male and
wins.
female encountered one another, where are they go? How are they going anywhere to encounter each other?
I guess it
It's-
moves. It's got to move some way, you know.
Well, it just closes
Slowly.
its gaping maw and just burrows underground trying to find its mate.
I mean, it might. If you look at those images I dropped, like they seem to have limbs.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
looks.
you are correct.
It just.
Those
It's.
look more like flippers than limbs. Yeah.
It looks
That-
like a
That
root. Like
tracks.
you'd think it would be stationary because they kind of look like roots, like something to keep it in its exact location. But I guess it would have to move because that sand pit that it creates, like what does it do with all the sand? I'm sure it eats, thousands of pounds of sand throughout its lifetime. Like that has to go somewhere.
So here's some fun facts for you. Sarlaccs reach maturity after 30,000 years.
Oh,
That's
is that all?
awesome.
There was some debate amongst xenobiologists as to whether the creature was an animal or an unusual carnivorous plant, though most found the creature far too dangerous to merit an extended study of the question.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's spread by spores, so maybe it is kind of like a plant. I love sci-fi for this exact reason.
Yeah, because like you could make up your own rules and then you could root it in science to where it's like, you know what, that tracks, that makes sense. I could see that happening.
You just
And
just explain enough of it, and then you're like, you know what? All
Mhm.
right, I've reached a threshold. I'm happy with my explanation. That
Mhm.
sounds
Here's-
good.
Here's a question for you. Did they stop doing pod racing?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the fun activities and stuff that they would usually do after the Empire took control, like
Mm.
with Darth Vader and the Emperor's combined reign, like they just basically like, all right, you're subservient to us, and like we're not doing any of this extracurricular BS. Like you're just here to serve us and give us whatever materials we need, and hope we don't decide to destroy your planet. Like I think that was it.
What? So I looked it up just because I was like really curious while you were talking.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they outlawed it because it's too dangerous.
Oh, I
The
like my explanation
Empire
better.
suddenly cares when something's dangerous?
I like my explanation better because it makes way more sense. Jesus Christ.
It's too
That's-
dangerous, bro. Don't
It's
worry about
so
those stormtroopers roaming around murdering innocent people, but
Or us
pod
destroying
racing's a big
huge
problem.
planets. Yeah. Pod racing is what we need to worry about.
Although, to be fair, that is such like a bureaucratic thing to do. Like there are
Yeah.
huge problems in the world, in the galaxy, but we're gonna focus on pod racing. That's the real problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're committing genocide, and people are complaining and like rising up. They okay, everyone, we're gonna address these issues of genocide from pod racing. We got to get rid of it. It's killing
That-
these young kids.
That is ridiculously accurate, actually. You know
The
what?
Empire is doing
yeah.
a lot of good, and then those hardcore
Yep.
Empire apologists are like, what about that time when they abolished the barbaric racing archetype that was pod racing, huh? How
Yep,
many lives that
yep.
were saved from that?
Yeah.
Can
What
can
a-
I just say, like, since we're focusing extensively on this planet for the moment, my favorite moment in this entire movie was when Leia breaks Han out of the Carbonite, and then Jabba's just like hiding behind a curtain right there.
Yeah, just wait. He's like slowly touching himself and licking his lips. Oh, this is gonna be great. Waiting for this reveal. Oh yeah. Give him a couple more
she
seconds.
has no idea.
Oh,
Oh,
she's
I've
gonna
been
be-
planning this for weeks.
Bib, you really knocked it out of the park with this one. This is a great plan.
Just sipping his wine. Someone dropped a cup. Shh, shh. They didn't hear us.
Yeah, that entire corridor was full of their the people that were
Their
just at the
troop.
party the night
Yep.
before, passed out, presumably drunk, passed out, and then all of a sudden 30 people remain perfectly quiet and hidden, and then a curtain drops and it's like the Jabba show.
And all of a sudden, ooh,
Yeah.
I know that laugh. I was like, oh god.
Han Mibuki.
Also, if you didn't know any
man.
better, like if you had just watched the original trilogy, you would think that Jabba grew like 4 times his size between 4
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
Because
Even though he's like 600 years old.
yeah, because
dude.
that scene where they just superimposed him talking to Han next to the ship in the 4th movie versus how big he is now, it's like, damn, are they in the same hut?
He's also a lot grosser, dude. He's got
Oh,
like
I
snot
love
and
it.
shit
Lick-
everywhere.
Licks his
He's
lips.
got
Oh,
like
he's
glistening
so
mucus
nasty.
all over his body. Yep.
He's so nasty, dude.
It's so
they
awesome.
And
They
he's
added
got
so much.
that weird thing like living in his worm crevice and shit. It's got its own little pillow.
Oh yeah, he gets the creature that R2 zaps on the ship and it flies up and clings to the rafter above the ship. Like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
Salacious Crumb.
yeah.
Like, I don't know what that thing is, but like I just love that it like lives in his little worm crevice with its little pillow
It
and
just laughs at everything.
talks shit all
And
the
that's all.
time.
That's all it does is just talk shit the whole time.
Like, apparently it talks shit on everybody, including Jabba himself, but he finds it so amusing that he lets it stick around.
Oh, something not Jabba or Tatooine related. When they were planning the attack, when they first got the plans, so everyone was saved. They get back to the rebel base. They're talking about their strategy to attack. That's when Akbar was first introduced. My boy Akbar.
It's a trip.
It's a trap.
Yeah. Leia says, they're criticizing the data about the plans, the shield around the Death Star, the codes, like their entire espionage mission to get the data to even start the attack. Leia's like, many Bothans died to give us this data. They haven't shown one damn Bothan. I looked it up. I was like, what is a Bothan? They haven't showed one in the entire Star Wars
That's how many
universe.
died, man. That's how many died.
I guess all of them. Yeah,
Just
right?
just proving his point. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, I guess I didn't think about it that hard. They all died to get that information.
I mean, it's just like in episode 4 when they say how many rebels died getting the plans to the Death Star. Like, you don't see that. Well, now
until,
you do.
until there's a whole movie. I want a Bothan movie then.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Bothans.
It's like Saving Private Ryan, but with all Bothans.
And
to
they
get
look
these
awesome
plans.
too. They look like
They look like some weird animal character from Fable, dude. Like, they're not that
Oh, they do look pretty freaking sick.
yeah.
No,
they
there's
look-
another movie that like the screams.
John, I know what you're thinking about, and I was trying to
Yep.
think of it too.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. It was like there's 2 of them actually. One of them was like an old cartoon one where like it was like a kid who went into like a game, like a kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game, and like he was riding dragons and like wizards and sorcerers. And then there's another.
Oh,
movie.
that's that it's huge. It's a huge game. It takes like 8 hours to play.
Yeah.
It's infamous, and I was actually gonna buy it at one point, but I'm like, no, I'm never gonna get anyone that I know to sit down for
To
this
play,
long.
yeah.
And I told you that I would sit down and play it with you, you son of a...
I can't remember the name of it now. It's Galactic something. It's a huge 4X game.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bothans look awesome. They should have been in the movie, but I guess they were all dead. So
It's sad. It's like, oh
They're
man, like we come up with a concept for an amazing creature, and then like they talk to financials, like, dude, if we put even 2 of these things on screen, it's gonna cost us an arm and a leg. Like, we
yeah,
can't do it.
they do look pretty intricate. That's that'd be. Is that it? Yes, that is it. Twilight Imperium.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
man.
that's exactly who I was thinking of right there. And there's also a movie too. What's either a movie or I may be thinking of a Doctor Who episode where something similar was also on.
Oh my God! Don't get me
You
started
would be
on Doctor
thinking of
Who.
a Doctor Who
Like
episode.
I had to fall off of Doctor Who after like being an avid fan for so many years.
Well, that's not what this podcast is about.
Okay, not gonna get
Speaking of
into
what
it.
it is about, was it weird to anybody else that Vader and Palpatine, when they talk to each other, like seem unusually aware of how evil they are?
Like it was kind of meta, like they were talking about how like their evil deeds were gonna conspire and everything.
Yeah, like normally when you have a villain in a book or a movie or whatever it is, like the villain isn't cognizant of the fact that they're evil. Like they feel like they're doing what's right, even though they're
uh
evil.
yeah.
Vader and Palpatine are just straight up like, we're gonna murder the fuck out of these innocents later, dude. Yeah, bro.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. That was kind of jarring a little bit because like I would understand Palpatine being like that, but Vader, I wouldn't have guessed that because like
Especially when an hour later he's like, son.
yeah, exactly, like
There's
showing remorse.
There's a small bit of dialogue that actually points to that when Luke is trying to convert Vader over when he's first captured on the actual planet. Vader says, "I must obey my master." He says, he said that exactly. I must obey. So there is some significant, significant
You can say
control
abuse.
there.
It's
I would say,
definitely
yeah,
abuse.
Dude,
yeah, it was,
if that's not a like an abusive relationship, I don't know what is. Like just call
Vader,
it like how
Vader,
it is, man.
get out of there! You deserve so much better than the Empire.
But I've got like 40 or 50 CDs in his battle station, man.
Luke, I can still save him.
I can't just leave my CDs.
Oh,
You don't
geez.
understand.
You're
Okay,
You're
all
not
right.
there for the good times.
Oh my God!
Like
all right.
if you can't call out your bro when he was like, nah, dude, your wife, your kids, they're all dead. And then later you find out he lied to your fucking face. Like you can't call him out for that. There's some serious issues in that relationship.
Yeah, dude, it's an emotional like manipulation. Like Palpatine had his clutches in him for just years and years and years and manipulated his views of everything that was going on around him. That I can understand why he would not question what he says about him because like legit, I think it was more that if he admitted that Palpatine was lying or that he was wrong, everything that he's done up to that point was for nothing. Like everything.
It would shatter him.
Yeah, it shattered his whole
Sure.
ideal of who he was and why he's doing the things that he's doing. Like just going back to when he first like decided to like, okay, I'm going to the dark side, where he killed all the younglings. That's one thing. And then like basically I went to the dark side to save my wife and kids. That didn't happen because she died in childbirth, but again, was his fault. And then he's like, okay, now I'm doing this to like make the galaxy a better place, to like under our rule, to where like nobody has to go through what I went through along those lines. But like that's just would be completely shattered if he was like, okay, he's lying, they were alive, and like he really didn't help me accomplish any of the goals that I wanted. So these whole like however many years that I've been by his side and been a loyal, kind of loyal to his plan was for naught. Like if I was in his shoes, I'd understand why I'd take time to assess like, no, it might be good. Like, it might turn out for the better. Like, yeah, either that or just be like, just literally just sit in a corner. It's like everything I've done for my life has amounted to nothing, and I'm a terrible individual and did no good in the world.
If there's one thing the Emperor has shown that he can do better than anybody else, it is manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's the best puppet master in the galaxy, except for the Dyad, which he didn't foresee.
Don't no.
We'll get to that one eventually, but
he was really not prepared for those Forest Moon teddy bears.
Jesus
No,
Christ. Okay.
he
Goddamn
I,
Ewoks.
I mean, Luke was right. Luke was right. His overconfidence, it was his weakness. He nailed it there. That one line. Um, that was it.
Yeah.
He thought he had this whole thing wrapped up in the bag. He thought there was, absolutely no way that they were going to lose. He thought that his dumbass Imperial engineers wouldn't make the Death Star so susceptible to another implosion just by shooting. Like, I swear that was a mission
Dude.
in
Oh my
in
god.
Star Fox 64. One
Dude.
blast in the middle of the Death Star and it's over.
It's the same flaw as the original Death Star. They just bent the
Exactly.
pipe.
It was easier this
Exactly.
time. It was easier.
Dude, like, again, like, I'm telling you, like, it is a recurring theme that Star Wars engineers are just straight up inept. I don't know, like, it's because, like, the Empire killed off all the good engineers and they're just left with the C and D students. I don't know, but
I
it's
mean,
like anything that's designed in Star Wars is just greatly flawed.
All the good engineers got killed on the first Death Star when it blew up.
oh my god, yeah, that's probably an incredible point because
Yeah.
they needed all the manpower and the intelligence to get that thing up and running. They thought that would never ever be destroyed. That's the last thing they would ever think about, right? Maybe disabled, but not exploded, right?
By the
I
way,
get that.
was anybody else like, what the fuck is this when they showed the Death Star? It's like there's a whole side of it totally missing and shit, but the rest of it is perfectly complete.
Yeah.
As if they were like, we're going to start with this section, complete it 100%, even though that's not how you build anything.
Mhm.
And then we'll move outwards and we'll just kind of cover the sphere that doesn't even exist yet.
It had no structural integrity whatsoever.
I think that makes sense.
And who was on that ship who was like, yeah, I mean, there's a gigantic hole on that side of the battle station, but it'll be fine, man. Don't worry about it.
I think it actually does kind of make sense. So I know that with my very limited knowledge, that if I was to develop and build anything in space, that's how I would do it. Because notice that they were going for minimum viable product throughout their entire development. They were going
So
for
accurate.
like they had a huge chunk out of the Death Star, but the fucking cannon worked, dude.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they probably had the gun, the actual cannon, working first. They built that first, and then they built the rooms and the systems and just everything around that. They should have just built a railgun, a giant gun, instead of a whole star.
Can we also point out that like the time between episode 4 and episode 6 can't be more than a few years, right? Let's just say that.
Oh, I know where you're going. Preach.
Let's say 5 to 6 is 3 years.
Yep.
And 4 to 5 is like, we'll just say that that's another 3 years. Like, did they just master space elevators in this time? Like, how the fuck did they get this all together that quickly?
Doesn't make any sense at all.
It's just a story. It's basically the story of the pyramids. Like, how are they built? How did all this come together?
Dude, it's not, because the
Pyramids
took a long time.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't you just have to accept it. That's what I'm saying. Like, with the pyramids, it's like there's a lot of mystery behind their construction and everything like that. With the Death Star, a lot of mystery behind its construction, so you just gotta accept.
Yeah,
it.
But the mystery behind the pyramids is how the hell did these people with no technology whatsoever get giant blocks and stack them on top of each other so perfectly? The mystery with the Death Star is how the hell did you have this much time and nobody knew about it?
Just with super competent like intel gathering and just making sure like no one. I don't know. I can't even fathom how that even worked out.
So current sci-fi movies could be able to explain it, but back then they couldn't have explained it. Like right now, if you were to remake Star Wars and you would say someone needs to build a huge spherical battle station that's going to be like a sixth the size of our moon, they would just use robots and they would use AI to just have drones work round the clock, build these things, and it would just kind of build itself. That's how you would explain that now.
Except we know in this movie that they're using humans
That's what
because
I'm
there's the
saying.
dialogue at the beginning with
That's
Vader.
what I'm saying. You
Who,
can explain it now, knowing what we know. Back then, no fucking way you're building 2 of them in
which
6 years.
which is
Yeah.
hilarious when you consider that like droids are such an enormous part of Star Wars. But was anybody else like, what the fuck? When Vader's talking to that guy, right?
Mhm.
And he's talking to Vader, he's like, dude, there's no way we can go any faster. What do you want from me? I got my guys working around the clock. There's no humanly the Emperor's coming. We'll double our efforts right away. We got this.
Yeah. They could have explained it with droids. Honestly, there is a gray area. I'm sure
Yeah.
there are many ways that you can explain, no, actually they were using droids because they never showed a scene of the Death Star being built by human hands or by non-droid hands. So sure, maybe humans were
Wait.
doing like the transport of the raw materials, but the actual construction was done around the clock. But then that still doesn't explain
mean-
why you had to double efforts of something that was
Yeah.
already autonomous.
He's got lazy ass droids going
Yeah.
around trying to build this thing.
Hey, I believe it. Seeing C-3PO, maybe he's got a bunch
Yeah,
of
you're right.
half-assed
I mean,
droids.
Like really, like just like that's his personality. Is like I don't want to do this.
But-
He
Like, I
needs,
don't
he needs to
care
go
what you program me to
burn
do.
in some droid feet to get them hustling up a little more.
But droids like that don't have personalities like C-3PO and R2. Like droids that are meant to build shit and destroy shit don't have personality like that.
We're going to be caught in this circular argument
Yep.
for the end of time.
Yeah,
We had
you
to
might be
just
right.
accept it. There's no way. There may be a
It's
great
just a
way to
hole.
explain and balance it all. I'm sure someone more knowledgeable than us can give us a great, not like
Explanation.
a great explanation that isn't purely canon, but still fits reasonably within what they could have done.
I got
But-
one for you. The original trilogy is not as good as everybody thinks it is.
I can agree with that,
mean-
but it's still like again for its time, it's still pretty great.
I actually think it's still fantastic. I don't think you watch Star Wars to be scientifically accurate. You watch
You
Star
don't-
Trek if you want scientifically accurate and
Oh,
realistic
God.
shit.
No, the fuck you don't.
Yes, a lot, way more than freaking Star
Don't
Wars,
get me
dude.
started.
Well, I
Don't
mean, you
get
have
me
a
started.
point there. It's definitely more accurate than Star Wars.
Yeah, it's significantly more accurate than Star Wars. But Star Wars, you just watch for the spectacle of it. The whole scientific aspect gets blown, especially the sequels. The sequels just take a shotgun to any scientific realism.
Can we stop talking about the sequels?
It's
I'm tired of
impossible.
this
Can't
crap.
help it. You can't. You have to compare the two. Like that's the whole point of seeing like how something made decades before is still like infinitely better with less resources. That's the worst part. Like so much less resources and also like canon and lore to build off of, and yet they just didn't accomplish like the bare minimum of what they should have.
Oh, and so this, I'm going to bring up the sequels for 2 seconds, really quick, just to make a
Damn it.
comparison. Just to make a really quick comparison. I think Poe Dameron is blown out of the water, and I personally think that Wedge is the best pilot that the Resistance ever had. He lived
Edge?
He lived through all 3 of the original movies, and he was in every major battle like a champion. We don't see a lot of things that he did, but he had to have been an incredible pilot to go through that
To
many.
just not die, yeah.
That's the standard. Just don't die, right? Like they hype up Poe Dameron, who drove a single ship. Okay, all right. I'm really not going to get into it, but I think Wedge is the best pilot that Resistance ever had, and I
I'm
challenge
totally
anyone
okay
on
with that. I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, Wedge is. He was even there at the final scene too with the Ewoks. Wedge was there. He's like, "Yeah, Chewie, what's up, man?" I was like, "Oh shit, Wedge! Like I never cared about you until now.
Yeah.
I never cared about you until
I
now.
didn't. I really didn't."
I mean, I can't argue with you for whatever
Yeah.
that's worth.
Which is honestly, no, that's worth a lot. Because no offense, you can argue with anybody about anything if there's leeway. So
I mean,
That
there's
is-
definitely leeway. I just don't
that-
know enough
that
about
is the-
Wedge to...
I'm I know that, but I'm just saying that is like probably the biggest compliment you could have ever given him to date. Because I've known you for years, and you can argue anything into the ground.
Well, you're right about that.
He'd probably argue that. No, never mind. He said yes.
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
How dare you? Here's an
I'm-
example where I didn't.
I'm just really glad that you're just not one of those people who just takes a negative stance against whoever you're talking to just to show how you're superior. Like, if you were like that, I don't know if we could be friends. I would just be like,
It's exhausting. Those
conversations would be rough.
Well, let me tell you why we would still be friends. I got this list.
Yeah. Actually.
Yeah. Okay. Twirling back and speaking about the Ewoks, so the first
we're getting
time I
into
saw
this now?
Yeah.
Yep. The
I
first
think it's a good
time I
time.
saw the Ewoks, I gotta say, it was borderline some of the most racist-ish that I have ever seen.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I don't know if it was. I don't know.
There was
It wasn't
one.
racist. It wasn't racist. It's just the way that they looked, especially like I think it was like the leader one, like one of the first ones you see. It just looked like a really short black dude with like furry glue makeup on.
So it's funny you bring that up, John,
Yes.
because I actually, while I was watching it, I saw an Ewok that looked like he was in blackface.
That's it.
I'm
Like
not
I was
even kidding.
watching it. Oh my god! This morning with Kim, I was like, I straight up said, I was like, "Wow, old boy look like somebody you see in the hood who just put on like straight blackface." Like I don't. That just looks really off to me. Like the other Ewoks when they're like totally like teddy bear like covered in fur, cool, wouldn't notice it. But this dude is like, it's like the fur stopped right under his nose, like right under his nose, so you see like really big protruding lips.
There you
And
go.
I'm just like, yeah.
There's not a lot of good shots, but that's the one that really stood out. I was like,
Yeah.
yee.
Oh my
That
god.
looks perfectly normal.
Shut up. Like, I will say this, like, Ewoks as like an addition to the Star Wars mythos just seemed out of place to me.
What?
Not for what I just not for what I just explained. That was just a personal gripe I had because I never really thought about it until I watched it recently. But like, I'm fine with Ewoks, but like, they just seemed out of place in the Star Wars mythos for like they were just so technologically inept that they shouldn't have posed any threat or resistance whatsoever. I don't care if you're even talking about guerrilla warfare. Like, they should not have posed that much of a threat to where they basically toppled over this empire that
Well-
other rebellions could not.
In fairness, those ATSTs apparently also blow up when you knock them over.
But no, John's right. The Ewoks made those stormtroopers look like idiots. I mean,
Yeah.
they were just getting rocks dropped on them, and they were just flailing around like they were just completely destroyed. I mean, it was a really pathetic fight. The whole Ewok, really anything with Ewoks, even the whole C3PO as a god, and the funny dialogue, oh, they're gonna cook his friends, and then Leia comes out and like, no, they're my friends. Tell them not to cook them, and that whole point, that whole part was just like, to me, just a waste time. While Luke has good dialogue with Vader, which we needed just 10 more minutes of maybe instead of that.
Yeah, I
Which
will
is
say,
weird because you could just like not have all those scenes and still have the dialogue with Vader and Luke.
yeah, I will say this. It feels like the Ewoks were added to the story for toys and marketing purposes. That's what
That's
it
not-
felt like to me.
That's not beyond Star Wars. I think they've shown that
Yeah,
they'll-
and like,
they'll intelligently add in, porgs are a recent example of it.
yeah, but
you
Porgs
know.
didn't like mass a rebellion that was the turning point and end of like a how
They
long
made-
year war?
They made
don't
me
know that.
rebel. Chewie should have taken that bite. I was disappointed when he didn't
Yeah, that
take
he
that
didn't
bite.
do it.
Also,
They didn't do
don't
it.
act like you weren't like, well, episode 8 was kind of okay after you saw it. Like, you weren't up in arms,
Who?
bro.
Me?
You.
Yes, I was.
You were like, nah, episode 8 wasn't that bad. I mean, like, I like episode 7 better, but episode 8's okay. I mean,
No, I will say this: like, when it comes to the sequels, The Force Awakens is all right and tolerable for me. everything after that, it just irks me because Star Wars is something that I hold very dear, and when I hold something dear and like I critique anything that builds off of something that's been established for years and that has a lot of good points and good story to work off of, and for that to be the product and something that a lot of people have been waiting for, that is just wholly disappointing. Like, and it makes me feel like an asshole when it comes to stuff like that, because I'm just basically like, okay, I know that this person like loves this movie and loves what they produced, but I can't. And then like if I voice my opinion, I'm just like crapping on everything that they like, and I just don't want to do that, but I can't help it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
like basically, Dean, like it comes down to like Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Oh,
like
yeah,
that
yeah,
the
that
movie.
fantastic adaptation that they did on film.
Not gonna get into it, but that movie compared to the cartoon, like the
Is so
reason
much
that
better? That's where you're going with this, right?
don't start, do not start. But the reason that I've like was like that is because like my fiance and the boys all love that movie, and like I literally can't sit and watch and appreciate it because of that. Like, I granted, like it is flawed here and there, and like it wasn't a great movie, but itself, but like when you watch something that opinionated is inherently better, and then you try and watch an adaptation to something you hold dear, you have that inherent bias, and like you get to a point to where you can't even enjoy something just to watch it. Like you have to critique it, like even subconsciously.
I think that's a good point. I think that that's what goes on in the Star Wars fandom with the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like fans who have been fans for, especially fans who have been fans since the prequels happened,
Mm-hmm.
hold these movies in such high regard that they have it's almost like they have this innate need to destroy anything else that comes out.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because like having rewatched the original trilogy, these movies are all three of them are deeply flawed. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are not incredible movies front to back.
Yeah.
Um Empire is probably the strongest of the three in terms of just being a movie,
Mm-hmm.
but even Empire, like we were talking about on the last episode, has a huge plot hole right at the very beginning of the movie. So I don't. I think Star Wars gets too much of a pass, which is also really funny because like one everybody was up in arms about George Lucas and what he did to Star Wars. And now that he doesn't have it anymore, people are really, really regretting those choices.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that does happen. I don't think it's not unilateral. So if you think the original trilogy is best, you don't just automatically hate everything else, because Mandalorian is an example of people who resonated or started with the original trilogy. They watch that and they love it. That's been the response I've
Mm-hmm.
seen, is that
Yes.
the Mandalorian, which by of course of course has Lucas on it, right? Lucas isn't a
Mm-hmm.
he's not a huge part of it, but he's a large enough part to make an impact, and I think get that original feeling back. And I think that I weirdly enough, the spin-offs for Star Wars, Rogue One, Solo, um, Mandalorian, I think they're all stronger than the sequel trilogy. I
Yes. And
I,
I think the
Even though
reason for
Solo
that,
kind of sucks, yes,
I don't
yes,
think Solo sucks. I don't think it sucks.
it,
I'm looking forward to
it's
rewatching it. I'm
eh,
expecting to be surprised.
I will say this. I think the reason for that is when it comes to those spin-off movies and series, I think they realized that less is more. And that's why Star Wars, when it was first released, was just so beloved and like just awe-inspiring, because if you think about it, like with movies nowadays, you get exposition on nearly everything because everybody is just going to drill down into every fact that you give them about the lore and the world building blocks that you're using in said movie. But back in the day, like if you like if you're like paying attention to like all these podcasts and everything that we're disseminating about the movies, is like we're actually given very little information on very on key subjects and like pillars of that whole world, like about the Force, about Jedi and Sith. We're given base information on all of those subjects. That's basically like the whole point of this whole war between the Empire and the Rebellion. Like this is actually what started it. Like was the central point of it. Like Palpatine controlling the Senate and everything like that. That's because he was a Sith and he wanted all the power. And the Jedi were trying to oppose him controlling all that power, even though they didn't know it, and trying to keep peace throughout the world. They didn't want someone too strong or too powerful to just topple over everything else in the galaxy and take control. And nowadays, you need to explain everything almost ad exhaustion because you have message boards, forums, Reddit, so many people that will just tear down what you created because it doesn't make sense. And I think that with The Mandalorian and a few others, like it got better because they just realized it's like you don't have to give them everything. Less is more. Just as long as you give them enough that it makes sense and leave a little bit of mystery in there, it makes it a good product. And I think that's what was missing in the sequels.
Here's something of a counterpoint though. The Mandalorian, Rogue One, Solo, they also all take place during that same period of time.
period.
Like,
Yeah.
they're all aesthetically basically the same as the original trilogy. They feel like the original trilogy. Like they're not doing a whole lot new in that way, like the prequels and the sequels do.
Yes, all of those movies are closer in time than the sequels. That is true. By about 10 years maybe at the max.
Well, I guess my point is like when you're saying that fans don't inherently hate everything that came afterwards because look at these. Well, those are like an extension of the original trilogy. They feel and look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
so
that's
like,
what I mean.
Like that's why I think fans like those because like there's no risk there. They're just telling different stories in the same way. Whereas the sequels and the original trilogy did something different and fans immediately slapped them on the wrist.
I think it's just human nature. You know, like the same reason that as you get older, you still think your music's better. You know, as you get older, your movies that you grew up on were better. The stories that you did, the things you did when you were a kid, they were just better than this generation. Like that's just, I think it's a constant battle that we just face as humans, as a culture. That's just kind of what we, just kind of what we're faced with. And I know I do with video games too. Some video games that come out now, I'm like, oh, these damn developers and publishers pushing out the same game every damn year, and I'm looking on my childhood through rose-colored glasses, and if I'm being extremely objective, it wasn't so great back then either.
I mean, a great example is actually Paper Mario. Fans are real pissed that they just refuse to go back to what it was for the first two games, even though it hasn't been like that more than it was like.
Yeah, no, like they're doing it to like spite the fans at this point. Right?
I don't think that's true.
I'm just being a cynic. I know. I'm just saying it's like they go out of their way to adopt and try something completely new every single game, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they fail, but you got to give it to them. They're really, they come up with a lot of really great mechanics, a lot of genius game ideas, and you'll attest this more than me. The writing has been top notch, consistent throughout all of them, right? The writing has been
Yes.
amazing on all of those, all the Paper Marios.
But also, like, this new one, from what I've played of it so far, is it clearly has things in it that are a response to how people felt about Color Splash. It may not be exactly what everybody wanted, but like they clearly heard what people had to say about Color Splash and took steps to address it.
Yeah, and like that's something I never really understood about video game development companies, about them not listening to their consumer base. Like if you think about it logically, logistically, like from a marketing standpoint, if you don't listen to your consumer base, they're not gonna buy your game. And it's gotten to a point to where it's literally caused the downfall of so many just 90s development company powerhouses because they would not listen.
But I mean, you say that as if it's unique to the video game industry, but I mean, you can see it right now in Star Wars. Like circling back, like Star Wars hasn't listened to the fans and what they want virtually at all.
See, that's I'm not saying it's unique to the video game industry. I'm saying it's more prevalent and more important in the video game industry. Like when it comes to movies, like Star Wars and stuff like that, no offense, you could put out a crap movie for Star Wars, you're still going to get high box office numbers in the first weekend because people are going to at least have to see your movie to appraise if it's good or not, and then recurring sales after that first weekend is going to be affected by those reviews, those consumer reviews that you have. So with Star Wars, like certain products, certain movie genres, not movie genres, just like movie cinematic universes, basically now, like Marvel and stuff like that, they're going to get a high box office yield in the first weekend or so. Video games, different because you're spending money to put a decent amount of time in each video game that you buy. So if you look at reviews and see like everybody's like crapping on it and like you don't have an open mind like you do and I do and like maybe certain people, you're not going to get a high enough yield in the first opening days of releasing a game. Like literally, video game industry lives and dies on reviews of their consumer base. There's no ifs, ands, or buts
I
about it.
think Metacritic just announced that they're gonna wait like 48 hours or 36 hours until they'll allow reviews to be posted on new games.
That's for their sales.
I think that was in response to Last of Us 2. People were like review bombing it.
Oh man, they were
Yeah.
totally review bombing it, and like that's what I mean. It's like the reason, like that whole stance in itself, is why they're seeing like how important the voice of the people when it comes to the video game industry is.
So, and to go back to Star Wars, not go off on too much of a tangent.
Yeah, you're
I
good.
think that this just happens with large media companies. So things that involve a lot of hands, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of individual
Mm-hmm.
minds. So video games are that way. Movies are that way. They require dozens and dozens of people doing unique and dynamic things and all working together cohesively. So if you don't have good leadership, if you don't have good direction, then it derails. You see that in the sequels. You see that kind of stuff all the time. With video games, you find that the publishers or the development houses that keep good talent, that retain talent, that have good leadership, that have clear direction, that are able to communicate well, then they produce bangers every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, CD
Yep.
Project Red is a good example of this. But then you also have the other blockbuster side of it, which would be like
Mm-hmm.
EA, who just pumps
Oh
out
my god.
Maddens every year, FIFAs every year, Call of Duties, things like that, just to get their just to get that
Product value and their
that
numbers up, yeah.
that bottom dollar there. So
The bottom line, yeah.
I think it's hard to retain quality when you are dealing with so many different people. So it's inevitable, and especially with in Star Wars' sake, you're not only every generation, the original trilogy, the prequels, the sequels, they're entirely different people working on every aspect of these movies every single
Mm-hmm.
time. So the quality is going to vary widely. I think why the sequels were so jarring is because the original trilogy had, I think, a stable core group of people involved. I know the directors changed, but I don't think that they were just coming from just coming from a void, directing and then just leaving. They were involved in maybe things in the previous movie, or then things also in the post movie from whichever one that they directed. And of course, you had Lucas there. Same thing with the prequels. All three of the prequel movies are pretty much kind of the same. Some, of course, one stumbles pretty
Production
hard,
teams, yeah.
but the sequels, I think, were very different. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like they had a plan for the sequels,
They
and
didn't seem very cohesive.
it's just challenging to coordinate a large media team to do things well. It's just challenging, right? Which even that even speaks more to the brilliance of the team which did oversight, development, writing, production for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's the
Yeah.
best example of the benefit you have from keeping the same core group of people, having a clear message, having a clear direction laid out, planning. I mean, that is just something that we'll be talking about for the rest of
For
our lives.
years
You know?
until, yeah, and like that's the thing is like, so I am an avid Marvel fan, and like, of course, if you're a fan of something, like most of the time when you adapt something, you shit on it. Like basically, like the X-Men movies, like I like the first one, and then after that, it kind of teetered off for me. But like with the Marvel movies, even though it didn't adhere like religiously to the source material, they were still great films.
Oh
And
yeah.
like honestly, I will say this: like the main reason why the Marvel movies succeeded the way that they did, in my opinion, was more based on casting choices. Like who the actors that they chose, and made sure that they would stick around for like the whole ride. Because if you think about it now, thinking about anybody else other than Robert Downey Jr. doing Iron Man, you can't even imagine it. He just embodied Tony Stark, period. And then like Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, Captain America, can't imagine it. Like he was just perfect. Even though like all the other movies that he's been in prior, he was like playboy, like pretty face, like he just did whatever he wanted to, like philandering. And then you have him being like the symbol of hope and bullheaded doggedness, never quit, and like the symbol of America in this cinematic universe. It was just immaculate casting choices and making sure that everybody stuck to the status quo. And that's why I feel like the Marvel movies succeeded. Like no matter what story they put out, even though it didn't make sense and there was plot holes and it didn't stick religiously to the source material, still great movies that tied together, and that you could be like, oh man, this is a callback to this movie, or oh man, this is how this ties into the next one. Like it was just a great experience. And I think that's why a lot of people, a lot of studios try to shoot to create a cinematic universe of their own, but they didn't copy the cookbook that Marvel set out. They didn't pay attention to how Marvel laid all that groundwork before they created this universe that is now just a powerhouse today.
They got lucky with the original casting for Star Wars too.
Yeah,
I think that
they definitely did.
they got super lucky with Harrison Ford. I think
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford is an incredible actor. Um, Mark Hamill, of course, is a great actor, better voice actor. I think he's going to be.
Oh, he's an immaculate voice
He's
actor,
one
and
of the best. Yeah.
he's the voice of my childhood.
Yep.
With Kevin Conroy.
And
Man.
I think that they also nailed it with Carrie Fisher too.
Mm-hmm.
However, I really preferred Leia. And watching the sixth movie, it just reaffirmed how I thought about this, that she really changed, her character really changed so much from the original trilogy to the sequels. Like
Mm-hmm.
she was and a lot of times in the sixth movie, such a badass. She was doing awesome
Yeah.
things. She choked Jabba out. Dude,
Yeah.
she didn't have
Man,
to
we
kill.
didn't.
She didn't have to
We
kill Jabba. She choked his
exactly.
ass
We didn't
out.
even touch on that scene yet. I
Yeah.
was waiting for that, but like, dude, that scene is probably one of those scenes where like you remember that and you can use that in like memes and like just in general conversation. Like, dude, what was it? The movie Knocked Up, where like where Kathy Heigl was like vomiting because she's like starting to like get
Mm-hmm.
morning sickness. And then the dude is like, "Oh man, you look like Jabba the Hutt getting choked out."
I
Like
did not
that,
remember that.
dude. Like it's so good, and like this is before like a whole women empowerment movement, like before like female actors and like just archetypes were mostly damsel in distress. You need to save me. Like no offense, like the costume that Carrie Fisher was in was like the epitome of damsel in distress. I need to be saved. Like I'm a slave with a collar on my neck, chained to this big ugly lizard dude that I can't get out of. But no, she's like, screw that. I'm gonna use this chain that you're using to subjugate me to choke your ass out. Like it was perfect.
It's
It was
not like
perfect.
Jabba
And before its time.
couldn't have done anything to her. She could have just grabbed a gun like she did, shot the chains off, and ran away. Jabba would have died anyway because the ship blew up. But
Mm-hmm.
she went out of her way to choke his ass out, and
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the many times in this movie that she was a badass. Another time was when they were trying to break into the shield generating base, and Han
Mm-hmm.
was trying to quote unquote hot wire the door after R2 got shot. And he failed miserably, once again speaking to how useless he was outside of just piloting the ship to get them there
Yep.
and talking with
Yep.
the Empire. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, when they surrounded them, those two troopers, Han had his back to him. You know, he was shielding Leia. He moved out of the way. Quick shot. She's a good shot. Took out both those stormtroopers. Now she could have just have easily thrown her gun, and they would have went down. Apparently, if you look at how they fought against the Ewoks.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, they wrote her as such a badass character. I was sad to see that she turned into the the Superman force
Mentor.
flying mentor character, and
Yeah.
she didn't retain as much badassery as I hoped that
I,
she would. Because
I
even
mean,
Luke even said in that movie, you know, I'll train you. I forgot the exact line, but he's like, "You'll learn too," saying, "I'll train you to be a Jedi as well."
yeah, and like she like in the sequels, like they said that she went under Jedi training and that she finished, but she didn't finish, but she stopped right before she was gonna finish
She didn't like it for
because
some reason. I can't remember why.
no, it was because like she felt like Kylo Ren like some weird thing, some weird shit.
There was some reason.
Like she
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
she had a force vision of something happening, and like she's basically like I need to quit and like devote myself to something else. But like I agree with you, like they didn't use her to the proper capacity that she could fill. Like the role that she had filled in the original trilogy was basically the epitome of just like I'm not a damsel in distress. I can do shit on my own and I can take care of myself. Like I'm better than most of the men out here, including Han Solo, who's like a fan favorite in the trilogy.
I thought it was kind of weird that they let Leia go down to Endor in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. Like they're like, okay, Han's making the strike team to go down. You know, all the friends say, I'm in it. Me too. Don't forget me. Okay, whatever. If I was the commander, if I was Akbar, I'd been like, Leia, no, you're not going down there to get yourself killed. I'll send one of my millions of other troopers or rebels with you. And there were other rebels there that were completely pointless because they got captured. But
Mm-hmm.
anybody else, you know, like that would
I,
have been a good time to introduce like a badass alien character. But having Leia there, of course, was awesome. Seeing her on the speeder bikes, kicking people off and having them run to trees, like it was awesome.
yeah, but I
And then
think that more.
she fell into a soft bush and went,
Yeah.
ugh.
Just wriggles around.
I wouldn't
But
have let her go down there. I know if I was in charge, I would have been like, "The hell you're staying on this ship? You're too
no,
important."
I think that more speaks to how badass she was. It's just basically like General Akbar didn't question it because it's like, yeah, you're probably one of our best fighters. You should go down there to like help our efforts to make sure like increase our chances of success. You know what I mean? I feel like that was more of the point of
Yeah.
why he didn't speak up about her going down.
And how dare
Did,
Lando bark orders at Akbar? That
did
moment
any
kind of made me mad a little bit, but it's not
It's
important.
Billy D. Williams, man. You got to cut him some slack.
dude, his acting in this movie was terrible though.
It was
Mm.
awful. Like, I feel like he was like chosen as the token, because like
Yeah.
looking back on it, like when you think about, oh man, like Star Wars characters that like me myself that I can relate to, you only have Lando. That's it. There's nothing else.
He still acted better than he did in 9. Oh, sorry.
Jesus Christ.
Before I forget, was anybody else like did anybody else like think it was weird when Han and Leia have that scene at the end where like Han's like, "You love Luke, don't you?" And she's like, "Yeah." Like
Oh yeah, it was-
you couldn't just like come out with the fact that he's your brother. Like you actively withheld that information from him earlier, and now you expect him to just know that when you say that. Like how
like
dumb are you?
nobody just told like clued homeboy in. Like it's like, tell Han that I'm his, like he's my brother and I'm his sister. Like no, nobody decided to disseminate that information to him.
See, that was an example of awkward writing, but an example of good writing I think happened just before that when
Mhm.
Luke told Leia that they were siblings. Because when he told her, she wasn't like, "Oh, you're my brother. Oh my god." Like it wasn't obnoxious writing. It was very I thought it was beautiful. She's like,
Organic.
he's like, "I've always known." Of course. See, like it was just like the force
That's
just
why we were
reaffirmed
making
it.
out in the last movie.
I'll give him a
Jesus
pass. Okay,
Christ.
it's better than oh my god, oh my god, you're my brother, and then like crying scene
It's
and
like,
hugging.
no, I feel
Didn't
like it
need
should
all
have been
that.
like the scene in Eurotrip when the twins made out with each other. That's what it should have been like.
I do not remember that scene.
I have to disagree with you, man. I think that scene where no, not you.
Okay,
That
cool.
that scene where Luke is telling Leia he's her brother is actually kind of terribly written.
Mm,
Like her reaction, sure, like that's pretty good.
That's fine.
But like the way he tells her is so weird and awkward. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it might be less the way that it's written and the more the way that Mark Hamill acted it. But given that the writer also oh wait, no, he didn't direct this movie. But
mm-mm.
regardless, like it's just so weirdly acted, dude. Like it's
Yeah,
like it runs strong in my family, in me, in my father, in my sister.
Oh, so bad.
I thought it was written well. But yeah, I don't think Hamill's not winning any awards for acting, or at least I don't think
Emmys
he
like that.
did.
I
No,
hope not.
I don't think he did.
he's just been recognized for like being legit a voice and like a poster child for like a generation of cinema and animated adaptions. Like
And
he's amazing.
He loves it too. Like I follow him on Twitter, and he'll always respond to people with like all of his random roles. Like someone tweeted at him, and then they're like, "Hey, you should play. You've voiced a lot of DC characters. Why haven't you voiced any Marvel characters?" Of course he has. But then he replied back to that person. He's like, "Here's all of the people that I voiced that were in Marvel," and then he has like stories for all of them that he'll tweet out and talk about. Like he loves voice acting so much.
He's just so good at it though. That's the reason why. Like, no offense, like if I had to choose between Mark Hamill, like regular acting and voice acting would win out, no
Yep.
question. Like, not even a real contest, like not even a real decision.
Yeah.
You know where he really nailed it though? When C-3PO was retelling of his escapades from the past movies, like, yeah, go. Oh, look at the sound effects. Oh, yeah. What happened next, C-3PO? Tell me more.
That whole part, see, like that didn't need to be in the movie. I thought it was kind of cute, but I don't know. I didn't like any of the Ewok stuff at all.
Out of
Really
place,
any
dude.
of it at all.
Legit, like regardless of how cute and fuzzy and like cool they were, like actually no, they weren't cute and fuzzy. They looked like demonic and monstrous and like or nightmare fuel. Honestly, if you look at them up close, but they just seem just ridiculously out of place in the story. That's just how I feel. Like if it was like even if it was just a horde of Chewbacca's,
Mm.
like without like real
Horde of
technology,
Chewbaccas.
like basically if you replace the Ewoks with the Chewbaccas, the Wookiees, like I still would feel like that was out of place. Like if they were like using the same tools, like Wookiees are stronger than Ewoks, but without any real technology, it just seems like that doesn't seem plausible at all that they
It
would win,
was, yeah. I
regardless of
mean,
guerrilla warfare at all.
it. The whole point is it's a metaphor for the Emperor just being overconfident. You know, that's the
Yeah,
whole. That's the whole reason that they're in there, and I think they could have done it a lot better, a lot of other ways. I think the Emperor is like he leaked the plans, the location, like it was him. He led the rebels to him, right?
just to get
But
Luke in his clutches.
but you couldn't leak the wrong base. Like you had to actually give him the real shield generator. Why don't you just tell him it's some hangar across
You
the
know what?
planet?
Honestly, I never thought about it that way, but you right. You 100% right on that.
He's so cocky that he's like, I could do that, but what if we just tell them the right place? But
Yep.
yeah, but they, what if they succeed? No, they
I
won't.
am the
succeed.
Emperor.
No.
They will never
Exactly, yeah.
succeed.
How dare you?
But what if they do?
Just force
They
lightnings him.
won't.
Anybody else have any opinions?
Just by my
Vader,
decide.
murder him without mercy.
Yeah, his hubris was his downfall in the end, which I think is poetic, of course. And you know, we said it already. The parts of the dialogue with the Emperor are my favorite parts of the entire movie because
Yeah.
they're captivating. They're exactly what you've been like. It feels like this is what you've been wanting throughout the entire trilogy. Is this final climactic meeting between Luke and the Emperor and Vader, and seeing
Exactly. Like
seeing that fight.
everything, like without your knowledge, everything coming like full circle and like Vader's redemption arc. Even though, like, most of the time throughout the whole series, like, you didn't expect Vader to like betray the Emperor. Like, he just seemed like he was super subservient. He was totally down with his whole plan, and like nothing was going to foil the Emperor's plot, and like he was going to win. Like, there was like bits and pieces and clues, but nothing concrete to where it's like, oh, this is gonna happen and like everything's gonna be fine. You thought Luke was either gonna like yield to the Emperor or just get straight up force lightning to death at that point.
Now, young Skywalker, you will die.
Oh my
no,
god.
nobody's coming to save him.
Dude, also, like, that whole scene, like, he's just lightning the shit out of Luke. And Vader's just like, that seems kind of shitty. I could do something about that.
Looking back and forth.
He's
I don't know about that.
legit.
You know what? Let me just lift you over my head and then walk over here. And the Emperor can't do anything. Vader has one hand, and the Emperor can't get away.
God.
Like, all he had to do was like wriggle and like roll over on his side, and he just couldn't manage it.
It seemed kind of anticlimactic for such a like overarching and dubious villain to like go out that way, but again, it's his hubris. It's like he didn't think it was going to happen. I think it would have been more cinematic and more of a oh my god moment if like he just randomly had like a lightsaber just show up out of his chest, you know, just like pop through his chest.
Yeah, but then like you wouldn't throw him down a shaft that explodes before the entire battle station explodes, and there's no way Palpatine's getting out of it.
Yeah, because then like that would have been also more plausible that he survived like being stabbed by a lightsaber. It's like it's a cauterized wound, but like if it's not through the heart, like you can like they have the technology to bring people back from near death.
Yeah,
Darth
I don't
Vader,
need a spleen.
Darth Vader, case in point. Like I'm just saying, like that would have made more sense. It would have been more of a like crazy, like oh my god moment, and then also like after he gets stabbed, like he has enough life and energy to just like force lightning Darth Vader and take his butt out, and you still get the whole scene with Luke afterwards. You know what I mean?
You know what I was thinking after right after that scene, because it goes to Luke and Vader in the hangar where he removes the helmet and you see Vader's face.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, I'm like, he had to drag Vader's heavy ass downstairs and through elevators. Like that hangar was not close to the executive chamber of the Emperor. That had to have been like, that was a hike. And I'm just imagining 5 minutes of Luke struggling to pull Vader's limp body down a
What are you talking about?
hallway.
What are you talking about? He's got the Force, dude. You just Force walk
Well,
his
Just
ass to the
force
hangar.
drag him.
There was like no, it's like no force powers in all the original trilogy, and I actually kind of prefer that. In the same way that I prefer the fighting in Dragon Ball over Dragon Ball Z. Weird comparison, I know, but follow me here.
Because it's more grounded.
It's
Yeah, I get
exactly. It's more grounded. There's a little more choreography, slightly more. I'm not praising the choreography of the fights in the
Yeah.
original trilogy. However, everything just wasn't a force battle. It was funner
Mhm.
to watch, or it was more enjoyable, I think.
That's why I
Huh.
think the Phantom Menace lightsaber duel, which was like minimum force powers
Ooh,
other than key points, was probably like one of the
awesome.
best. Like people like were like, this is it. This is what lightsaber duels should always be and should strive to. Like that's where it was.
Did nobody else watch that scene where like Vader's dying and he takes off his helmet? I want to see with my own eyes for once.
Oh,
And
God.
then he takes off the helmet. Was nobody else like, damn, Vader, you like put on some pounds, bro? Like, you've been pounding them cheeseburgers while you're in that
He is a little
meditation
chubby,
chamber?
yeah.
Or-
It doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't make sense. Since basically, like, I don't think he sustained himself with food at that point after they changed him to Darth Vader. So I don't know
Sustained with
how he
hatred.
got. I mean, it might be the fact like he's getting older, so his skin was sagging, and that's why he looked like he gained on a couple of pounds. But I don't
Nah,
know.
dude, he
He
was
wasn't
like
that much
clearly
older.
heavier.
Here's the thing, though. Like, how old was Anakin at the end of the third movie? Would you say like 18?
Well, actually,
Not older than 21.
The most,
you know what? I can just find out. Keep going.
the most I think Vader is maybe 50. Like he's pushing 50 at the max. If we assume the longest time gaps between 4 and 5 and 5 and 6,
He's 45.
so at the end he dies at 45, right?
Correct.
Hey, I was close. Okay. So
Yeah, you were.
he's not that old, really. He shouldn't be that decrepit. Although you know what he went through, of course, getting almost completely charred and burned alive. But he
Mhm.
looks way older than that. So maybe that's like the Sith, the dark side influencing on him. Um, one thing I wanted to point out, the actor, I don't know who it was. I don't know who the guy was, or if that was even the real guy that normally is Vader behind the costume. But he did a good job of mimicking James Earl Jones' voice. Even though he only had like a few lines, it still
Without like
sounded,
voice augmentation. Yeah.
yeah, it still sounded like James Earl Jones enough to where I'm like, I thought, knowing that because the actor and the voice actor were different for Vader, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna clearly know a difference once this helmet comes off because I couldn't remember. But no, he did a good job. It sounded exactly how you would expect it to sound. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I liked it. Um, since we're so close to the end, I do want to point out, um, I thought the one of my favorite ships of all time, the Executor, um, the Super Star Destroyer, went out like a bitch. I didn't like. I loved how it went. So it falling into the Death Star was awesome. That was a really cool scene. The fact that it fell at all was dumb. So
Yeah.
wasn't happy with that. And also, if I do want to talk about the Force Ghost, but I want to talk about the celebration scenes before that when they're going to Coruscant and to and the different planets showing the celebration of the Empire being defeated.
Actually,
Mhm.
before we get there,
Okay.
I need to bring something up with that Vader Luke fight really quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Like when when they're battling, there's that point where Luke just like starts hiding from Vader so that they don't fight.
Mhm.
And like Vader's looking for him. He starts talking shit, talking about how he's gonna turn Leia to the dark side, lures him out and shit, only to discover he's standing like 5 feet in front of Vader's face, dude. Not in
Mhm.
the shadows. Like he's right there. He had to have known he was right there.
His machinery just like was faulty at that point. That's not his fault.
I got nothing. Yeah, I mean,
It stuck out of me sort of. I was like, okay, so Luke is like hiding over there underneath the staircase, something like that. But he's literally right in front. There's no way he didn't know that.
that's
It was
some
so unbelievably bad.
that's some original thief hiding. You know, when
Yeah.
you're hiding in a sliver of shadow and they can't see you.
I'm crouched, so he doesn't know I'm
Yeah,
here.
I'm crouched.
Exactly. It was like I'm totally invisible to anything.
Like Vader's
All
a
5
T
senses.
Rex. He can't
Yep.
see me if I don't move.
Oh god. I would never believe anything like that. I'm sorry. Like even if it caused me to die, I would start running.
You would be the lawyer who gets taken out in the
Right?
toilet.
Exactly.
He left us. He left us. So what were you saying about the celebration?
Well, I don't know if all the same. I think some of the celebration scenes were put in there in the enhancement. I don't think they were all there in the original.
Mm.
But one part really jumped out, and that was when they put in Jar Jar, and he says like "We so free."
Oh.
Did you guys hear that?
What?
No, I did not.
How did you
so-
guys not hear
well,
that?
I don't know about John, but like I watched my Blu-ray version of it, not the Disney Plus version this time. So I don't know if that's a newer edition that wasn't on mine or if I just missed it. But like, no, I have no idea what you're
I
talking
will
about.
rewatch that to see if I hear that. If I do, I might break my.
Is it just a soundbite or did they show Jar Jar?
No, it's just a soundbite. That's all. At the very end, when they're
that
hovering
makes it
over,
worse.
when they're hovering over the like last city showing the celebration, you hear Jar Jar yell, "We so free!"
Let me listen to this really quick.
I think the fact that they didn't show him and added the soundbite is worse.
I mean, it could be another Gungan, but it's heavily implied that it's Jar Jar.
I will say I would rather them not have the soundbite and show Jar Jar in like a back screen, like dancing, than that.
Yeah.
First of all,
I found it. Hold on.
I found it. They show the Gungan right there. You can see him.
It might have gone by too quick for me to catch, but you're right. It's a number of Gungans on top of the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a Gungan, all right, but I can't tell if it's Jar Jar or not.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, another Gungan can sound like Jar Jar. I don't think that's too much of a stretch, but it sounds just like Jar Jar. I mean, I'm gonna say it's Jar Jar. Come on. Actually,
I'm
is this
okay with making
Naboo?
that stretch.
Yeah.
It looks
Well,
like it.
Yeah, it has
dude,
to be.
if you have Gungans, then yeah, it
Well,
obviously is.
That's no.
Not
Jar Jar
true.
was on
They-
the Senate.
They got
He was on
spaceships
Coruscant.
Gungan.
Bro, come on. You have a group of Gungans. Where the hell do you think they came from?
They could have chartered a ship and just like gone to the celebration.
Bro, stop it.
Hey, Gungans can do other things. You know, it'll be amazing.
Jesus, man.
Mandalorian season 2, we see like a bounty hunter Gungan, right? Like a really, because we've only ever seen like
just like
happy-
a badass Gungan.
a super badass Gungan, right? Like war torn, just went through the Emperor's tyranny, and now he's just like a bounty hunter or something, living on the fringes of the galaxy. That's what I want to see.
Man.
But yeah,
that would be pretty awesome.
this really stuck out to me when I heard it. I was like, oh god,
Yeah.
Jar Jar.
I heard for Mandalorian season 2, they're in talks with Rosario Dawson for being the older version of Ahsoka.
I saw that too, and I think that Ahsoka absolutely needs to play a huge role in something because she's the most important character that's not in any of the theatrical releases.
Yeah,
You know,
especially with. I still need to watch all of Clone Wars. Like I hear it's so good, but what season am I supposed to start on?
2. I think you can
Two.
start. Just read what happens during season 1. Season 1 is pretty rough, but you can start
Just
at
read
season
the
2. Just
the
find a
synopsis
synopsis.
rundown of it. Yeah.
Just find a synopsis. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would do. I mean, or you can watch the whole thing. Whatever you want.
Oh,
So the voice actor who did the Wisa Free line confirmed that it is just a random Gungan on top of the roof. It is not Jar
Okay.
Jar Binks.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
No, I mean,
Still unnecessary, but I'm okay with that. I feel better about it.
they should have put like some kind of text there that says, "That's just a warning. This is actually not Jar Jar.
No Jar Jar Binks
No
were
Jar-
added to this movie.
No.
So in
Jar
the
Jar
in the
Binks were added.
subtitles, it should have had like in parentheses like random Gungan
Not-
Wisa Free. Like,
Not Jar Jar.
I mean,
Misa
do we
free.
know that it's not in the credits though?
in the credits.
I mean,
man,
nobody watches the credits, but
they do not. But it
I
probably
can see
will
it.
say random Gungan.
Yeah, random.
something like
Gungan number one.
one.
Yeah. Gungan 1, something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, not Jar Jar Binks.
and then
Confirmed.
I think the last thing I want to talk about is the Force Ghost. If you were watching the original trilogy, like if you're getting into Star Wars and someone said watch it in release order, which I think is reasonable to a certain degree to have someone watch it in release order.
I think it's necessary, but go on.
Well, that final scene with the Anakin's Force Ghost would be super super weird because you'd be like, who the hell is that?
That's true.
You wouldn't
That's
know.
true.
You wouldn't know that Hayden Christensen was Anakin in the prequels, so you'd be like, oh, the Force Ghosts, oh, they're all there. I wonder if Anakin's gonna show, and then it fades into some random dude. You're like, who are you? Like, what did I miss? I guess it's
Yeah.
you might be able to just assume that it's Anakin if you didn't know it from the prequels, but still it'd be really really weird to see it there when you just saw Vader in his decrepit glory. I've actually forgotten.
I mean, I think
what the
it's
original one
weird
looked like.
anyway.
Yeah.
You know what's weird is I can imagine what the original guy looked like in my head, clear as day. I know exactly what he looked like.
You mean the Force Ghost?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
exactly. I can't say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
A little bit.
For some reason, like his face is burned into my memory, but like it's weird to me because like I guess the implication is that he turned back to the light, so he was reborn as a Force ghost and blah 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 blah. But if that were the case, wouldn't it still be his old ass form? Like Obi-Wan's old,
Yeah. Yep.
Yoda's old.
Yep.
Why is Anakin like the way that
Why
he
does he
was
get a
25
pass?
years ago?
Yeah, why does he get a pass? You are correct. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, that was a dumb edit. They should have just kept the
It was-
original one in.
It was a bad edit.
For
It was
sure, yeah.
bad.
Like I understand why they did it, but it was a bad idea.
Yeah, like my whole stance on episode 6, like bullet point wise, like Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia was a badass. Han Solo and C-3PO were basically useless. R2D2 gets MVP, and I don't even know why they had Lando Calrissian. Like he wasn't really
Lando and Han were kind of useless.
Like
Yeah.
the most fan favorite characters of the movie were straight up useless, but Carrie Fisher didn't get any clout or plaque from like all the stuff that she did. Like she saved Han's life, helped with the rebellion. Like Han basically didn't do shit.
Well, hold on. Shout out to Boba Fett who got bumped in the back and thrown into the Sarlacc pit by Han Solo.
And he screamed.
Ah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like really, dude, you did him that dirty. Like he was so clunky and slow. Like just a crappy bounty hunter. What the hell happened?
Like honestly thinking about it, the most fan favorite and heralded characters from the original trilogy basically didn't do anything of real note You think about it.
I think
Like
Han
it's just that they
Han was
looked
the
cool.
best actor out of all of them. I
He
think
was the
I
best
think the best
actor,
actor in
but
the entire movie was Ian McDermott. I think he was the best one as the Emperor. But
mhm.
I think Han just I think Harrison Ford is just a great actor to begin with. So his scenes, although as a character he was more or less kind of
Yeah.
useless and just was just there.
Mhm.
He was still fun to watch.
That's true, but like that's I think the only thing was like his charisma and like the way that he like didn't make it seem like they were in life or death situations because he was just like so nonchalant about everything. But still, like
So I
I think
think
So
Leia should have got more credit.
it's so I thought that I would like rewatching the original trilogy. I thought my order would end up being 5, 6, 4,
Mm-hmm.
but it's
yeah,
actually 5, 4, 6. So 6 actually is a little bit weaker than I remember it being.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because like last week I was talking about how I thought maybe episode 4 could scrape back up to the top over 5 for me, and maybe I was just experiencing some recency bias with
Hmm.
episode 5. That absolutely happened. So for me, it's 4, 5, and 6 again.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Like there's just so many things that and it might just be a nostalgia thing, but like there's so much about episode 4 that I love inherently, and while 5 is arguably a better movie,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, I just like 4 more, and 6 is definitely the weakest of the 3.
It really is, and like I think 4 probably sneaks by the top spot for most people is because of how they introduce these characters and the scenes that are just so powerful and memorable. But I have to like say that for me it's 5 or 6.
Hmm.
Random side note: do you guys know that because they brought the Emperor back, he was 119 years old when he died?
It's
He
just
technically he was a clone in the sequels.
he was a clone, and like you
He
think
was a
about it, it's
clone of
like
the same age, though.
he was just like no.
Oh
If you
yeah,
think
that's
about it,
dumb. Wait, that doesn't make
yeah,
any damn sense.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
I
the
it's
never
like
same
thought about
age.
that. Why wouldn't he just want himself to be like back to his youth, like a clone
like to
trooper?
his yeah to his like his prime form. But like you think about it, it's just like if he knew all this stuff about Darth Plagueis and how to like use the Force to control life over death, why would he decide to use technology and clone himself instead of like, you know what I mean? Like it's just that kind of crap.
Well, maybe we'll find out next week when we jump into episode 1.
Yo,
But I think that'll do it for this week, unless you guys have anything else you want to add to episode
Ewoks were
6.
useless.
Ewoks are your favorite, noted.
I
John the Ewok.
I think we're gonna
Oh
find a
my god.
species to shit on every single movie. So
It
like
Well,
in
yeah.
I'm pretty confident I know what next week's will be.
yeah, I'm pretty confident too. But like episode 4, what was the species that you think that you could shit on episode 4?
Humans.
Okay, I guess there's not a lot of there's
There wasn't a lot
You, you
introduced
know,
in
you
oh
know what?
before.
no,
The sand
people,
people.
sand people, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
the
yeah,
sand people.
Shit
the
on
tauntauns.
shit on Tauntauns
And
episode
then the
5.
Tauntauns are
Yep,
episode 5.
it's episode 5, and then we
The
got
lizards that can't survive
the
their own climate.
the lizards. Ewoks
God.
are episode 6, and then I think I know what I might shit on for episode 1, but
Yeah,
we'll have to wait
I'm
and
gonna, I'm
see.
gonna hold back because like rewatching it, my answer might change.
Yeah,
Mhm.
It's actually been a long time since I've seen episode 1, but I
yeah.
really love that movie
I go back and
today.
I watch the final lightsaber fight like every like year or two. Like I'll just watch that scene
It's
because it's
so
incredible.
good.
Yeah, but the whole
Yeah,
movie, it's been a lot. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm looking
yeah,
forward to it.
and they picked the perfect person to play Darth Maul, the guy who played Toad in X-Men. I forgot him, but he's a stunt actor and he's just amazing. He does amazing work. And like again, less is more. Like basically Darth Maul didn't have like any lines except for like two in episode 1.
Hmm.
That sounds
Yeah.
right.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Yes, we will. Until next time, everybody. Have fun out there.